Let us pray. Almighty God, we you have called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelele ilesbe letu nabantu bale, umusili ukulungu pipondo letu, kosi sikelele Afrika, Trina abantuano bayo, kukele inkukele zayo, yenike ikolo i Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Order. Before we start with the formal proceedings, may I take the opportunity to welcome our guests on the gallery and just remind them that they are welcome here but not to take part in the proceedings on the floor. I also want to extend a special welcome to the visiting group of students and the professors from the Fachhochschule in Kiel in Germany. Most welcome with us. I see the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move the motions on the order paper in my name, and I with the rider for the second motion, Deputy Speaker, and that is I'm aware that the standing committees dealing with the said bills have already met this year to deliberate on them. The committees will ratify these deliberations in their final reports on these bills. I so move.
Thank you. Just clarity on that one. I put the first motion, no objection agreed to. Second one, no objection agreed to as well. We then move on to the orders of the day. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on the Premier's State of the Province address.
I see the Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Magaka.
Deputy Speaker, Premier, and protocol observed. Before I begin, I would like to welcome the 54th ANC conference outcomes and the consequent election of Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa as the President of the Republic of South Africa. His election has brought a new era of hope and change for all South Africans, young, old, black and white. We appreciate the sense of renewal the President's SONA speech has brought to the country. We promise to restore public confidence in government, commitment to ethical behavior and leadership, a new national minimum wage to improve the lives of more than 6 million South Africans, improvement to government support for the poor and unemployed, and land restitution, including, if necessary, expropriation of land without compensation. Premier, we had to write to you to convince you that SONA should first take place to open the parliamentary year, which will set the tone for the year, believing it will be against the principles of cooperative government for any province to proceed with a State of the Province address before the President has delivered the State of the Nation's address. We were disappointed in your letter dated the 15th February, where you stated that you received no legal arguments why the State of the Province address should not take place before SONA, and that Western Cape government was not consulted regarding the postponement of SONA, whereas the DA party requested SONA be postponed. Your actions once again prove that you do not want to be part of nation building and to continue to run this province like an island that is not part of South Africa. No wonder you have been suspended from your own party decision-making structures. You have once again tweeted about water colonialism and to be threatened about being charged again for tweeting positively about legacy of colonialism. It will be the second time in a year that will be investigated.
Order, Mr. Muganga. Order. Order. I'm speaking to both sides of the House now, but specifically the DA. There's too many interjections at the same time. Select your interjections more selectively. Be more selective.
Thank you,
Honourable
Deputy
Burger,
Speaker.
may I continue?
It will be the second time in a year that you will be investigated for violating DA's social media policy, breaching your social media agreement with the party, and bringing the party into disrepute. You represent the old racist apartheid backward times, which cannot coincide in this new dawn the country is set upon. Your behavior borders towards
Order.
someone suffering
Order.
from serious infantile disorder.
Minister Fritz, question?
I'm at pains to try and discover how is it responding to yesterday's speech? It got nothing to do with yesterday's speech.
Order.
That's irrelevant. You just come
Order,
and talk
please.
absolute nonsense here.
Order, Minister Fritz. I've listened to the order. I have listened to the point of order. This is a wide political debate. I will clearly look at the contents. Please continue.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Your behavior borders towards someone suffering from serious infantile disorder, and you are being dangerous to yourself and your own party. Premier Zili, in your 2017
Order,
State of the
order.
Provincial Address,
Order,
you
member.
indicated.
Honourable
Mr.
Mackenzie.
Speaker, I just want to get you guys, and it's okay for the honourable member to say, one, that the Premier represents the old apartheid order, and second, he said that she suffers from serious
Order.
infantile disorder. She suffers
Order.
from serious infantile disorder. Is that parliamentary?
Order. I can't hear the point of order. Please repeat your
The
point of
honourable
order.
member Magata said that the Premier represents the old apartheid order, and secondly, she suffers from serial infantile disorder. Is that parliamentary?
I'm not sure what the first one was about, but the second one I will reserve my view on that one. Please continue.
Premier, in your 2017 State of the Province Address, you indicated that it could cost a minimum capital amount of 15 billion for desalination plant for Cape Town, with operational costs potentially running between 350 million and 1 billion per year, which will translate into very expensive water. This 15 billion figure is very concerning, since the cost of desalination plants across the peninsula at Quebec, Cape Town Harbour and Harmony Park, which could jointly produce 180 million litres per day, have been calculated at 1.3 billion by the Department of Water and Sanitation Technical Team. The City of Cape Town's water resilience plan estimates that desalination plants at Cape Town Harbour, Strandfontein and Monabisi, together with water augmentation, will jointly produce 200 million litres of water per day at a cost of 3.3 billion. Premier, your desalination costs have been inflated to provide big business for your election campaign. Your own former DA steering committee chairperson has blown the whistle on your corruption, according to Rodney Lenton. The DA turned against Delili because she did not want to sign 2 contracts for desalination plants. Lenton claims these contracts amounted to 834 million and 6 billion, respectively. The DA stands to make 600 million kickback from these Israel DA funders for their 2019 election campaign, which is extremely corruption. The Democratic Alliance has manufactured this Cape water crisis. They stood by watching our dam level decreasing year on year from 2015 with 25%. When dams reach 50% in 2016, down from 75%, they did nothing. And now in 2017 summer, when dams reach 25, down from 50%, they still did nothing meaningful to produce the 500 million litres of water that Cape Town uses per day. The Western Cape has companies that produce world-class technology in the field of reverse osmosis technology in water treatment, with experience in building desalination plants. South Africa has many water boards that have built desalination plants.
Honourable Bierwinkel, are you raising a question or point of order?
It's a point of order. Yesterday, The Chief Whip repeatedly got up and asked the Speaker to invoke Rule 39. Why is he not asking for it now when his House is making the same
Order.
noise? Double standards,
The
please.
Chair will control the House. And the Honourable Fritz, you are on the verge of being talked to, so just contain yourself. Honourable Bagaka, you may continue.
South Africa has many water boards that have built desalination plants in other provinces, and our national government has prevented metros from running out of water within the corporate government and intergovernmental relations framework. Just last year, they prevented Johannesburg from running out of water with proper water demand management strategies. And Speaker, ANC will be submitting complaints for Premier Zil at the Public Protector to investigate her abdicating her duties and fettering by my money to cross the state and party line when she allowed an unelected official to coordinate what is called Defeat Day Zero. It is unacceptable for my money, who is an MP, to head a governmental task team. This pushes the boundaries of the separation of powers, where day-to-day running of the government should be left to executive official. This is unacceptable, since state institutions should be independent and state officials should be accountable for their action. My man, who is unelected in this provincial legislature or the city council, cannot be held accountable for his action. This has the potential to lead to corrupt situation where political parties' donors expect to be rewarded with government business, as the case with the Israel DA funders, which was exposed by Rodney Lenton. This corruption and racism is the real reason, in actual fact, why Rodney Linton resigned from the DA caucus in this legislature.
Order. You may continue. Honourable Jantje, you're interfering with your own member speaking there. You may continue.
The province has seen many government failures the past year. During the annual reporting period, the Department of Agriculture failed to produce audited annual financial statement with an audit opinion. The Department of Human Settlement, which is headed up by the leader in this DA province, Bonginkosi Matikizela, Honorable Bonginkosi Matikizela, failed to receive clean audit. This is the same Bonginkosi Matikizela that is under investigation by the Public Protector for receiving benefits and donations and sponsorship, which he still has not declared. And he is laughing. And he is laughing as if it's a joke, squandering people's money. MEC Matikizela was also found to have not given sufficient answers to the register of members' interest at the time. What did the DA caucus do through their chief whip, Honorable Wiley? They advertised current registrar's position while he was still on the job, basically firing him through undue pressure in order for them to appoint their men for the job. Subsequently, fresh complaints were submitted to the new registrar of members' interest against MEC Matikizela and MEC Mbombo on the 1st December 2017. This new registrar has failed to acknowledge the new complaints. Almost 3 months have passed, and he has also failed to call the conduct committee to discuss old investigations reports or the new complaints. What has the new registrar of members' interest been doing with the 90,000 he is earning every year, every month so far? Colonial legacy. The Premier of the Western Cape, Honorable Helen Zille, has tweeted, I quote, "For those claiming legacy of colonialism was only negative, think of our independent judicial, transport, infrastructure, pipe water, etc." Close quote. This tweet has brought back many pain and suffering to victims of apartheid like me and colonialism in South Africa. She celebrates the oppression, exploitation, racism, and poverty, which are direct results of this legacy of colonialism. By her reckless statement, she failed to act in a manner that is consistent with the integrity of her office. I believe that her personal interests of white supremacy and white privilege are in conflict with her official responsibility as a premier in this province. Our constitutional democracy entails that we heal the division of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. The Premier has violated the principles of our Constitution and divided our society on racial grounds. By undermining South Africans with her personal belief on colonialism, she has failed to uphold her oath of office, which requires Premier hold office with honor and dignity. The affluent town of Hout Bay consists of a number of multi-millions rand mansions, luxurious holiday homes, and some small wine estate. With the additional fishing community and tourist activities, there was a need to house many workers to keep the town operational. This led to establishment of Misappropriation, the main informal settlement in Hout Bay. The settlement is lacking important infrastructure, minimum water supply, few toilets, and poor sewerage system. Because of its location and the overcrowding, Misappropriation is vulnerable to hazards like floods and fires. In a statement in March 2017, the Deputy Mayor said, I quote, "It is believed to be one of the worst informal settlement fires that we have experienced to date." Close quote. Such a statement from a high office bearer would make one to think that drastic action and support will have to be taken. Wrong. At the time, it would appear that 4,500 structures were razed and approximately 15,000 residents were affected. 3 victims lost their lives during the fires. NGOs assisted the community with meals, blankets, toilets, and mattresses. I was among those people who were bringing blankets and those necessary things in that particular community. In contrast to that, none of the DA leaders ever put their foot there. You know.
Order.
In contrast to the
order. Just 1 second. Honourable Fritz. I can't hear. Order.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the
Hang
upper
on.
leader of the opposition.
Just 1 second. Order. Honourable Makalini.
The deputy leader of the opposition, I think he's probably the deputy, is misleading the House. He's deliberately misleading the House.
Honourable Fritz, you've now go slightly too far. You can say he's misleading the House, but if you say he deliberately misleads the House, then it's unparliamentary. But that's a debating point, but I want you to withdraw that.
Because I'm on the record that I was there. All of us were there.
Honourable Fritz, you can say the member is misleading the House, but
He's misleading the House. He's lying.
Are you withdrawing the deliberate part?
Sorry, I'm withdrawing the other part.
Thank you. You may continue.
Maybe you were picking somebody on the street in the midnight. Nobody saw you there. In contrast to nice fires which resulted in the damage of property owned by rich residents, the provincial government went so far as to have a cabinet meeting in Knysna. It prompted an urgent announcement that 75 million of the disaster fund of the province will be released for a suitable response to mitigate the damage incurred. 7 people died, at least 1,000 homes in Knysna and Pleasant Bay were damaged or destroyed. 985 firefighters using 78 fire vehicles, 6 Oryx military helicopters, 4 working on fire helicopters, and 2 fixed-wing bomber aircraft were deployed to deal with the fire in Knysna. One can't help but ask why a similar response was not deployed for the people in Misappropriation fires of March last year, which displaced 15,000 people. The provincial government must really come forward and say why they had such a lackluster response to the Misappropriation fires compared with how they moved mountains for Knysna fires. South Africa has made many gains in fighting inequalities, which persist through income equality, land ownership, unemployment, and education that we simply cannot still worry about being discriminated against on race and class when it comes to disaster response from your local authorities. Coming back to disaster relief, which was activated when disaster hit Knysna in August 2017, the provincial government announced the allocation per municipality. For human settlement, a total of 7.5 million was allocated. 2.5 million was for Cape Town, including Misappropriation and Hout Bay, yet 5 million of that 7.5 million went to Knysna.
Just take your seat, Minister Fritz. Order. Honourable Gillian, I'm busy with a point of order. There's nothing wrong to say a party is racist, but you can't say a member in the House is racist. So please continue. Order, order, order. Honourable Gilliam.
Deputy Speaker, can I please address you?
On a point of
On
order.
a point of order. I've got a problem when an MEC can't behave in the House. Yesterday in the sitting, the chief whip of the DA got up, repeatedly alerting the Speaker to the behavior of this side of the House. Now I am standing up here and I'm asking you, Deputy Speaker, can you please ask MEC Fritz to behave appropriately?
Thank you, member. Point is taken. Minister Fritz heard you. Honourable Mgaka may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. That member is a danger to himself. To put the cherry on the cake, the DA provincial government allocated 3 million towards the Gaukama Nature Reserve, which is in Naisna area. This is more than 2 million which was allocated for Cape Town, Misappropriation and Out Bay combined. Such blunted discrimination of funding shows how the DA government cares more about Naisna's tourism and Cape nature entities than the displaced people of Misappropriation. Black and colored lives don't matter under the DA government in the Western Cape. Corporate South Africa, thank you for your assistance when disaster hit Naisna. APSA donated 10 million for disaster relief as well as 5,600 tents. FNP donated 10 million. Santam also donated 1 million. Mutual and Federal donated 400,000. Discover donated 375. And Outsurance donated 250,000. As much as we appreciate the assistance, we cannot help but ask the question, where were you when disaster struck in Misappropriation? Do you only help a particular racial group in South Africa, a minority group that owns 70% of our wealth? It is reckless of the DA provincial government to sit on 200 million disaster fund and sit by idle when our township and Cape Flats have daily disasters and they only act upon releasing disaster relief when white affluent towns like Naisna have a disaster. This is totally unacceptable because it will mean that disaster must first hit Lovenstein and Welgemoot before the city will respond to a similar disaster which affects Belgium. The lesson learned in Misappropriation must prevent a nonchalant response from the DA government. We cannot, in Kayamnandi, wait for Stellenbosch to burn before helicopters and bomber aircraft will be deployed in the future. Equal service delivery for all must happen, and it must happen now in the Western Cape. Employment changes. The quarterly labor force survey report for Q4 of 2017 showed that the number of employed persons in the Western Cape increased by 92,000 when compared to Q3 of 2017. When compared to Q4 of 2016, the Western Cape recorded an increase of 106 jobs in Q4 of 2017. As much as this is commendable, the major cause for concern is the possibility that these jobs may have been contracts of limited duration. The nature of employment is not specified, and in the same period that employment numbers increased in the province, there was an increase in the number of employees on contract of limited duration in the country. While we want to celebrate the increase in employment numbers, we are actually disturbed by the fact that in Q4 of 2017, more than 744 people of the working age population were unemployed in the Western Cape. Of this number, 515,000 people increase of Africans. I think you must kill yourself. You must commit a suicide. You're not right. There is a lot.
Order.
Your DA government's job creation does not benefit colored and African people in the province. You continue to advance white supremacy and white privilege in the province. Hence, you never mention the employment equity report. The ANC in the Western Cape is a government in waiting. while the DA is dying slowly. We are ready to provide equal service. We are ready to continue with what we started when we took over. We are ready to provide equal access to service provision in this province. Unlike the racist behavior of this DA, whether you can wear Honorable Windy T-shirt, even white and green blue T-shirt, your party you represent is a racist party.
Order, just 1 second. Order. Honourable Deputy Chief.
Speaker, the member's time is up. The member's time is up.
No, his time is not. Order. You may continue.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are ready to provide equal service delivered to all the residents of this province. Unlike how the DA continue with discrimination, with managing disasters and creating water supply shortage. Thank you very much.
Order. I see the Honourable Minister Madikizela.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Wow. What a response to the State of the Province address by the Leader of the Opposition. Deputy Speaker, let me start by thanking the citizens of Cape Town as well for heeding the call and reducing water consumption to push day 0 to the 9th of July. And it is indeed something that all of us must call for, because those who think that this is a myth or a scam really do not understand the realities that we are facing because of drought. Deputy Speaker, if we continue to use 50 litres of water per person per day, we will indeed defeat day 0 even further until our augmentation plans produce more water from our aquifers and desalination plants. And I do want to correct the Leader of the Opposition, because our desalination plants will produce 16 million of litres of water per day, not 200 million litres of water per day. For your information, Leader of the Opposition, we will produce 7 million litres of water from Strandfontein, 7 million litres of water from Monwabisi, and 2 million litres of water from VNA. So it's 16 million litres of water per day, not 200 million litres. On the second issue that is raised by the Leader of the Opposition, unlike the ANC, when the province is facing a crisis, that calls for the leadership to step in. Now, people keep on talking about conflation of party and state. The federal leader of the Democratic Alliance has never convened a meeting with the officials of the city of Cape Town. People of this province and people of this city voted for the Democratic Alliance. And that's what needs to be understood. Now, it is therefore important, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the leadership of the Democratic Alliance to call upon those who are deployed in government to account when we are facing crises, which is what the leader did. Madam Speaker, let me also congratulate Democratic Alliance teams in both Beaufort West and Overstrand for emphatic win in both by-elections, where the ANC, for example, in Overstrand got 15 votes. Now, this is the party that is claiming to be resurrecting. Now, the Democratic Alliance got almost 1,900 votes.
Just 1 second, Honourable Minister. Order. Honourable Diana. Honourable Willifield.
Deputy Speaker, is the Minister prepared to take a question?
The Minister is not prepared to take one now. You may
look at the demarcation.
Minister may continue.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me start.
Order.
Let me now go to the point that was made by Ukaya, Honorable Member Kaya Makak. On Friday, the 16th of February, I also, like many South Africans, attended the State of the Nation address delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Order, members, order. The noise level in the House is too high. Please, come down. Order, Honourable Magaka. Is there a question?
Speaker, just a point of order.
I'm listening.
The member is calling me Kaya. Even traditionally, it's not allowed for him to just call
Yes.
me. And Yontangaka.
Order. Point is taken. We are all on honourable members. Minister Madikizela, just 1 second. I must address myself now to the 4 ladies at the back there. Honourable Diana. Honourable Diana, I'm talking specifically to you and your colleagues next to you. You're making running commentary all the time there, and please calm down. Minister, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I, like many South Africans, also attended the State of the Nation address delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa. His speech was welcomed by many as a promising departure from Zuma's disastrous presidency. Many people here and abroad were really desperate for good news, and Ramaphosa's New Dawn speech was hailed as such. Deputy Speaker, like many South Africans, I would like to give President Ramaphosa a chance. But I'm honestly not holding my breath. Because, Deputy Speaker, you can only judge a person by his track record, not what he's promising to do. And Ramaphosa's track record doesn't inspire confidence. This is still the same Ramaphosa, by the way, who defended Zuma when the opposition took him on about Nkandla. He even went as far as saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that people on the ground are not worried about Nkandla. That's what Ramaphosa said. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is the same Ramaphosa who sent an email putting pressure on both police and mining ministers to take concomitant actions against workers who were protesting for wage increase in Marikana, calling them criminals before they were gunned down in August 2002. Now, only 6 years later, after he has been elected president, he's talking about atonement. Now, we find it very hard to believe, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is the same Ramaphosa, by the way, who in 2014 was given a responsibility by the cabinet to come up with a turnaround strategy for SOEs. And this corruption was happening under his watch, and he did nothing. And he now has an audacity to come back and say he'll do something about it. Now, that is why, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm not holding my breath for Ramaphosa to do anything. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in his opinion piece on Daily Maverick of the 7th of February 2018, Gareth van Onselen described the ANC in the Western Cape as the world's worst opposition party. Failing to capitalize on the challenges faced by the DA, it is a directionless and incoherent organization with no political strategy. This is what you see. In fact, the response from the leader of the opposition on the State of the Province address clearly indicates that. We expected much better. And I think it's also important to emphasize the point, because we do expect...
Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Olivier, is that a question again or a point of order?
A question.
Do you want to ask? Minister, are you prepared to take a question? The minister said he would order. The minister will not take a question now, but if there's time left, he says he may want to.
It's a leader. He's afraid of a
Minister, you may continue.
As a leader.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is important to mention that we do expect the members of the opposition to hold us accountable as government. In fact, it is their job to do so, because it keeps us on our toes as the government. But at least people must understand our constitutional responsibility as the provincial government of the Western Cape. I had many people talking about the role that we should have played in drought, which clearly indicates that the members of this side have no understanding of what is our constitutional responsibility when it comes to drought. The fact of the matter here, Deputy Speaker, is that it is the responsibility, and this is not a blame game, it is the responsibility of the national government to provide water infrastructure. Our responsibility in terms of the Constitution, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is to make sure that we deal with disaster. And that is why the Premier, when she realized that there was a looming disaster, then she started to talk about the plans that we must put in place as this government to make sure that we avoid that. That is our responsibility, and you at least expect these members to understand that. Madam Speaker, let me welcome during a State of the Province address, Premier Helen Zille highlighted the success of this government since 2009, which is a stark contrast to the ANC government in other provinces and nationally. When we took over this government from the ANC in 2009, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we committed to do three things as part of our strategic objectives. We spoke about improving our education outcome, and as you will hear from our colleagues later, we are succeeding in doing that. We spoke about attracting investment and creating jobs. And the fact that this province has the lowest unemployment rate in South Africa clearly indicates that we are on track. Madam Speaker, even though we are bragging about having built more than 4 million houses nationally since 1995, there is currently a 59% national backlog in the transfer of ownership to housing subsidy beneficiaries. And this is very, very important, colleagues, to understand that when we build houses, it's not just about providing roof over people's heads. It's also about making sure that people have ownership to those homes, because it's about land transfer and it's about also property ownership. In the Western Cape, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have brought this down to 25%. In total, we have delivered over 82,830 title deeds to beneficiaries since 2009, which is a clear indication that we are not just building homes, we are making sure that people own their property. The province of the Western Cape is also leading on other performance indicators like upgrading of informal settlements, affordable housing, including social housing. That is, Deputy Speaker, in terms of the report, presidency reports, where all provinces are expected to report the progress on those particular programs. Deputy Speaker, last year, the National Department of Human Settlements approved 50 catalytic projects. 8 of those are in the Western Cape. These projects will completely change the landscape in size and in approach, and are going to yield about 105,000 housing opportunities, catering for all income categories. These are the people who are earning, some of the people who are earning too little to get a bond from the bank, but they are earning too much to get a subsidy from the government. The details around these will be revealed during my budget speech later. But what is important, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that we are now starting to tackle the areas that Honorable Makaka spoke about. And these are informal settlements in your Philippi, in your Kukuletu, in your Nyanga. And if you look at the program that we are now busy with in terms of the catalytic projects, it will make sure that we change the landscape in terms of making sure that we improve the lives of the people in those areas. I do also want to reiterate, Deputy Speaker, that in terms of these programs, we are the first province that has started to appoint service providers in a number of areas like your Forest Village, where we are planning to produce more than 5,000 housing opportunities, so that people in Blue Downs, people in Mfuleni, people in Esterfield are starting to benefit from these particular programs. Now, these are the tangible deliveries that this government of the Western Cape is currently doing. And when people are saying this government is only delivering for the rich, I just find it puzzling. Because in terms of the law, you cannot spend government subsidy in rich areas. In fact, my department spent more than 90% of its budget in poor areas. And therefore, I find it very surprising when the leader of the opposition giving this impression that this government is providing services to rich areas than in poor areas. I also want to just quickly touch on the issue of clean audit and unqualified audit that was received by my department.
Honourable Speaker, this opportunity enabled Pietra to access skills in the IT sector which remain out of reach for many rural South Africans. After completing the internship, she applied for the position of Development Manager at the centre, a position she still holds today. Pietra now conducts computer and ITC training in a community.
Order. Order. Honourable Makaleni, Honourable Konlu, please contain yourself.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, Pietra now conducts computer and ICT training in a community in the Central Karoo, making use of the skills she acquired through the PAY project to better her community. When we reached out to Pietra, she expressed with gratitude how she never thought such a great opportunity could come her way. Pietra is just one of the thousands of young Western Cape matriculants from disadvantaged backgrounds who have accessed skills and sustainable employment through the PAY program. This, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is governance and hope in a country where youth unemployment remains worryingly high. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape government, under the leadership of Premier Zille, remains unwaveringly committed to youth development. The Premier's Advancement of Youth project has created close to 4,300 internship opportunities since 2012, including 700 opportunities this year to the value of 31 million rand. These projects are a vital lifeline for previously disadvantaged matriculants and young people in rural areas to access skills development and employment opportunities within the public sector. Ms. Pietra April is now an employee in one of the 70 Cape Access Centres built in some of the most rural towns in this province. We are averaging close to 55 user sessions per month in these centres, which provides connectivity, Wi-Fi, and online access to public services. We have just launched our 8th Youth Cafe in Veldrift, and Youth Cafe serves to keep our children going youth off the street, away from dangers of gangsterism and drug use. In these safe havens, young residents in our province are provided with a safe and communal space to just enjoy being young South Africans. On offer is free Wi-Fi and youth services such as skills development, career counselling, life skills, and leadership development. This is yet another example of our province's commitment to empowering rural youth under Premier Helen Zille. Honourable Premier and Honourable Minister Fritz, I look forward to engaging with you moving forward to open a youth cafe in Beaufort West. I must also commend Premier Zille for a swift response to the drought crisis in this province. Premier Zille and her department have also single-handedly and effectively managed the disaster management of our province to put every measure in place should our province reach day zero. It is now common knowledge that the Western Cape Premier was obliged to make up for the shortfall of the ANC's National Department of Water and Sanitation, which delayed bulk water supply projects. Not to mention, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the regional head, Mr. Rashid Khan, who in February 2017 was still in complete denial that our province was in a drought at all. Premier, thank you for showing leadership and governance in this time of crisis, when the African National Crisis, Congress, at national government sat on their hands. Honourable Speaker, the National Disaster Management Centre has classified a national disaster following the crippling drought in the Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, and the Western Cape. But Premier Helen Zille was effectively preparing our province from the onset of a potential day zero. In stark contrast to this is the ANC-run Eastern Cape, that cannot decide, Mr. Deputy Speaker, whether or not to recall the Premier who was embroiled in scandal involving the abuse of millions of rands allocated to the funeral of former President Nelson Mandela. This after having been elected during the infamous and violent Festival of Chairs, which has come to characterize the ANC's internal electoral processes. The Eastern Cape's dams, Mr. Deputy Speaker, are currently lower than those of the Western Cape.
Order.
And yet...
Order, member. Honourable Chacha. Order.
Relevance.
Order. I'm listening.
I want to ask Chair, where is the relevance?
Order. I cannot hear.
Oh, the relevance.
Please come to order. I can't hear the Honourable Chacha. Say again.
What she's raising. Where is the relevance? How is she? What she is raising? Oh, Honourable Member.
Order. I hear you, but...
we are debating the Premier speech.
Correct. As I said initially, this is a wide political debate and there really are no... Order! This is a wide political debate and the boundaries are very far. Remember, you before you continue, Honourable Lecker.
But his facts are wrong.
I'm listening.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I would like to understand, and please clarify me, if it is honourable for MEC Matigizela to call the leader of the opposition by his first name.
I have already ruled about that. It's not parliamentary. We are all order. We are all honourable members, and that is the way it shall be. Honourable Mitchell, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Eastern Cape's dam levels are currently lower than those of the Western Cape, and yet their ANC Premier...
I will look at that. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Back in the Northern Cape, Premier Sylvia Lucas is too busy reshuffling her cabinet to mask the MEC of Health's expenditure...
Honourable Makaleni, just one second. Don't waste the House's time. Are you talking about two members speaking at the back? They are not interfering with the order of the House. That's the main thing. The main criteria is whether you interfere with the order of the House. You can sit there, it doesn't matter. Please continue.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, back in the Northern Cape, Premier Sylvia Lucas is too busy...
Honourable Beerwinkel.
Deputy Speaker, this is the third time that the member is repeating something totally irrelevant to the Premier's speech. What is the Northern Cape got to do with this?
Order.
Totally irrelevant.
Honourable Mitchell, you may continue.
Premier Sylvia Lucas is too busy reshuffling her cabinet to mask the MEC for Health's expenditure of approximately 1.8 billion rand on a psychiatric hospital, which has now been under construction for more than a decade. All the while, the water in the Northern Cape continues to dry up. If drought disasters are what the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, and the Northern Cape have in common, then leadership styles are certainly where we starkly differ. It is incredibly reassuring to live in a province where Premier Zilla's proactive response to our drought crisis continue to unite residents, making them aware of our water usage and address water usage and supply as we move forward as South Africa's best-run government. Honourable Speaker, we know that in the face of the Western Cape drought disaster, our province is in good hands. I suggest that if the ANC takes issue with our province, it's merely because they clearly do not have any good stories of their own to report on. Thank you, Premier, for your commitment to youth development, which remains a focus of this government.
Order.
Thank you, Premier, for your commitment to youth development, which remains a focus of this government. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to close with the following quote by Nelson Mandela. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I quote, Sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great.
Order. Honourable, I want to address Honourable Lecker, Honourable Diane, at this stage. You are running commentary when the member speaks. We can't continue this like this. Interjection is fine, but don't have a running commentary all the time. You're interfering with the member's speech. Member, please conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I will close with the following quote, that sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. To my fellow young residents of this province, you can be that generation. I thank you.
I see the Honourable Christians.
Deputy Speaker, the ACDP wants to thank the people of Cape Town for reducing the water usage. We are glad that the people of Cape Town are not paying extra tax for good behaviour. Speaker, although there were many positive aspects in the Premier Soper speech of yesterday, there is a few concerning issues. The Premier spoke about clean audits for government departments and entities, and this is welcome. But further strides also, the Premier said, was done in local government. But the DA flagship of good governance, the City of Cape Town, received an unqualified audit with findings. This is a regression in the city's audit outcomes. And it was deemed so serious that the DA wanted to dismiss the mayor. And yet the Premier omitted to say that the metro in the Western Cape received an unqualified audit with findings. Speaker, staying with the City of Cape Town, I wonder, with the city and the province fighting, is that not the real reason why we have a day zero? In an article of the 11th of February, the headlines reads as follows: Skok aantuigings oor de Lils mosie. Dit is verder DA draai teen haar oor kickbacks, and the leader of opposition elaborated on that. But Speaker, what is also very interesting and mentioned in the social media running around is that there is now apparently backroom boys in the DA controlling the city and controlling the province. The Premier needs to say, is this a fact, yes or no? It is being said by the former caucus leader that the backroom boys, which are faceless, are running this province and the city. They are equivalent to the National Party's Broederbond. Speaker, another reason why, and this is concerning because this is running in the media, another reason it is alleged that the DA government wants to get rid of the mayor of Cape Town is to accommodate Human Settlements Minister Bongekosi Matsigilera as mayor of Cape Town. So that Minister Alan Winde can be the runner for Premier 2019.
Order.
And the question must be asked. We have Minister Ivan Meyer and we have Leonard Max as capable leaders. Speaker, these are very serious allegations, and we want the Premier to respond to this. Speaker,
order.
The interventions of the province when it comes to alcohol abuse is something that we can look forward to, but yet again the city and the Western Cape government is not working together. The government of the Western Cape is focusing on the reduction of the use of alcohol, and sub-councils in the City of Cape Town and other municipalities in the Western Cape is awarding liquor licenses and is extending trading hours. We again want to ask the Premier to look at the Western Cape Education Amendment Bill with amending the use of alcohol at schools. This will be disastrous. Just to come to the election by-election that we contested out in the Overstrand, the ACDP got 80 votes. The ANC got 10 votes. The EFF got 4 votes. And the DA took it with almost 1,900 votes. So we must not mislead the people of the Western Cape. The ANC is far from being the government of the Western Cape.
Order.
The EFF says the government in waiting. I think they'll wait forever.
Order.
Speaker,
Order.
the ACDP...
Just 1 second. Order. 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 Honourable Diana. I'm just trying to listen to your own member in front of you. Honourable Olivier, you may continue.
Speaker, is my colleague prepared to take a question?
Honourable Christians, are you prepared to take a question? No, he's not prepared.
Of the ACDP.
He's not prepared.
No.
Please continue.
We must look at the demarcation of overstrength, ne?
Speaker, the ACDP welcomes the progress when it comes to housing opportunities in the West Cape. But the question that communities is asking, there's people that's on the waiting list for 20 to 30 years. Will they ever get a house? And maybe the Premier can elaborate on the desperate people staying in the backyards of our townships, waiting for a house, and nothing is forthcoming. Speaker, the ACDP also wanted the Premier to speak more about the safety in our communities and the safety in our schools. Although we know the national mandate when it comes to community safety, but in our schools, our pupils cannot excel because of violence, drugs, gangs, and also the bullying at our schools. They cannot excel. And these issues needs to be addressed.
Order. Remember, your time, unfortunately, has expired.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Please come to order before I see Minister Bredell. Minister Bredell.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, Premier Zille, Cabinet colleagues, members of the Provincial Legislature, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity. Honourable Speaker, let me start off by just explaining quickly the term day zero. The term day zero means that we're exactly going to do the opposite, and all our plans is based on the fact that we're not going to get to day zero. Day zero meaning that our dam levels will be on 13.5%. And the term day zero we've put there so that we can protect the resource for next year. If any of the opposition that's so quickly to chirp and to comment on it will just attend our briefing sessions, they will exactly understand what we're going to accomplish. Then also, if we look at the water situation across our province, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we sit in the midst of an unprecedented crisis and an unforeseen crisis. This is a once-in-400-year event, and despite our province and the city having a proper 30-year water plan in place, we find ourselves running out of water. I want to re-emphasize this point. It is one I think people are still largely unaware of. This province has an existing 30-year water plan that we've developed and put in place in 2009. At the time, we were criticized by our colleagues from the national government who stated that it was not the provincial job to develop such a plan. Instead, it was the national department's job. Still, we did it anyway. Honourable Speaker, the only problem with our water plan is that in our water plan, we expect the National Department of Water Affairs to do what the Constitution expects of them to do, and that is to look after bulk infrastructure. Now, just to emphasize my point, if we look at the National Water Department, the civil engineers in the Department of Water Affairs in 2004 were 250. Today, we sit with 80, of which less than 60 of these engineers got experience within the field. Sadly, Honourable Deputy Chair, the province was hit by a prolonged 3-year drought, an unforeseeable and unpredictable situation. There is no way one can predict a disaster, and even less ways of adequately trying to prepare ourselves for a disaster. There is simply not enough money in the world to make oneself disaster-proof. Agbare Deputy Speaker, die gevolg is dat die provinsie nou reeds 3 jaar hierdie droogteramp bestuur en ek is trots om te sê dat daar tot op datum nog nie 'n enkele plek in hierdie provinsie was of munisipaliteit wat uit drinkwater gehardloop het nie. Of die ANC dit wil weet of nie, agbare Speaker, ons woon in die best bestuurde stad in die land en ons woon in die best bestuurde provinsie in die land. Ons het inwoners wat ons help en daarom gaan ons dit oorwin. Dit is danksy boorgate wat ons al in 2015 geboor het, pyplyne wat aangelê is en verskeie droogtebestuurmaatreëls wat ons in plek gestel het, wat ons sal help om hierdie situasie te oorwin. Soos u weet, is ons enigste rol as dit by water kom, die een van oorsig en later as dit by 'n ramp is, om die ramp te bestuur. Daar was, kom ons wees eerlik, hier en daar kommunikasiegapings wat kon bygedra tot die publiek en die media se frustrasies. Maar, agbare Deputy Speaker, ek dink ek kan met opregtheid sê dat die voorslepende ramp uitstekend bestuur is en dat hierdie DA-regeerde provinsie en DA-beheerde munisipaliteit ten spyte van die veelvuldige uitdagings ons inwoners met geruste hart bed toe kan stuur. Honourable Deputy Speaker, while dam levels across this province or across the Western Cape are currently at a record low level, on average 22% full, I currently choose to remain optimistic when it comes to our water situation. The one reason for that is I believe we really have some of the best people in the country looking into the situation. We have experts in the department and experts in our municipalities, in particularly in the city of Cape Town, working daily to mitigate the situation. In addition, we also have a public sector that is already to a large extent on board and cooperating magnificently and helping us in saving water. Yes, more can be done, and we call on the people to continue to do so. His role is to help us accountable as his DA colleagues. That's his only role within. But the ANC won't understand that because, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I can see that the Honourable De Yankee isn't even on the Speaker's list because the ANC prefer the Honourable Duckmore for their provincial leadership. Honourable Speaker, back to my speech, I am very optimistic that under the current water usage patterns, we will not reach water level 7 scenario in the city of Cape Town. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the reality is that South Africa water usage has long been out of balance. It's a fact that per capita, the average South Africa uses a lot more water than the average person in the global village. Rapid urbanization is making matters even worse, with 2 million more people, for example, expected in this province alone over the next 15 to 20 years. The city of Cape Town has seen its population double in the past 20 years. It will do so again in a shorter period moving forward. With previous droughts, we were able to get by. This time, with the increased demand, it is getting increasingly difficult. The result is we see the ball being squeezed from two sides. Too much demand and too little supply. The major concern remains several small towns that are at the risk of running dry. This includes places like Saldanha, Matsikama, Beaufort West municipalities. Naturally, the city of Cape Town remains a major concern for us in the medium and long term, especially if we continue to get below average rainfalls. We have been assisting and supporting our colleagues in the city to provide additional augmentation projects. This work continues. We also saw the agricultural sector, the farmers from Grabouw and Elgin, helping out recently. They bought us a month. We can never thank them enough. Agbare Deputy Speaker, ek wil graag ook van die oomblik gebruik maak om al die amptenare en kollegas wat die afgelope paar jaar en veral die afgelope 12 maande baie hard gewerk het reg oor hierdie provinsie om die droogte te bestry, te bedank vir hulle harde en onbaatsigtige werk. Dis amptenare van die stad, die provinsie en nasionaal. Dit is danksy hierdie pogings dat geen dorp tot op hede uit water geraak het nie. Harde werk is verlede jaar gedoen, as ook voor die Desember spitsseisoen, in veral dele soos die sentrale Karoo, met die gevolg dat ons met sukses deur die periode gekom het. Ons fokus is nou op die stad en die Wes-Kaapse regering het op 8 Februarie besluit geneem om 'n bykomende 82,5 miljoen toe te ken aan die departement van plaaslike regering om verdere waterprojekte uit te rol in die munisipale gebiede wat om die stad lê. Indeed, almost everyone has been doing their best to prevent the province from running out of water and to help mitigate the disaster. Almost everyone. Sadly, I must state that the continued silence by our national government counterparts remain a major concern. I will briefly go into 2 specific areas in this regard. First, it is on public record that this province first approached the national government to declare the Western Cape a disaster area in November 2015. 19 months later, this was finally granted. And there the problem started. Because if we started to save water in 2015, we would not have been in this predicament currently. That meant, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that meant huge delays in expensive projects like rolling out infrastructure such as desalination plants and drilling in our aquifers. Furthermore, the funding associated with dealing with this disaster, a tiny amount of 74 million was only provided by August 2017, but without being gazetted, which meant that the bulk of this money could not be spent until December 2017. Given these facts, it was unfortunate that the National Minister stated the province has not been spending the disaster relief funding. This is a shame coming from a weekend special. I'm just very grateful that he was never entrusted with the finance purse in this country. Secondly, Honourable Deputy Speaker, it is a fact that the National Department of Water and Sanitation still refuses to admit that this province and the city is midst of a crisis. The misunderstanding of this situation means that there continues to be a huge confusion and delays to much-needed bulk infrastructure for the Western Cape. It is a fact that the only mega projects, the raising of the Klein Willem Wall, has now been stopped after billions has already been spent. And maybe I must park here, because the stopping of this meant that 6,000 additional hectares for new farmers, we can't develop that. Then the second reason is that there's structural problems with the Klein Willem Dam. But if that is not enough, Honourable Deputy Speaker, 25th of October last year, myself, the national departments, was called to a meeting in front of the National Standing Committee, where the minister in front of the Standing Committee said that they will award the tender for the Klein Willem Dam Wall by December 2017. She made a promise. Just 3 weeks ago, she said to myself and the Premier, they're not going to go ahead with that project. Lying to the National Parliament, Honourable Deputy Speaker. There is currently no major augmentation projects coming from the national government that will provide the City of Cape Town with additional water in the future. I want to implore the national government to understand their role and to get going on the projects they have long promised us but have never delivered. These include the Klein Willem Dam, the raising of the Voelvlei Dam, as well as major initiatives around the Brandvlei project. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we also need added support from the department to clean out alien vegetation in the catchment areas and to tackle leaks and aging infrastructure in our municipalities. Can you just imagine if the City of Cape Town, with their projects, haven't managed to get us under the 15%, some of the lowest figures in the world on water losses, where we would have been. The rest in the country is 30+%. Honourable Deputy Speaker, it is time to face the facts. Extreme weather events like this current drought are not going to go away. and is increasingly going to threaten food security and economic growth in the country already struggling with unacceptable levels of poverty and unemployment. Responsible government must be more proactive with a long-term view to addressing these concerns. We need to reimagine the way we work and how we all work together across government, business and public sector. If there is one thing this disaster drought has shown us, it is that we can no longer continue as we have been. It can never be business as usual. Climate change is very real. We must urgently do whatever we can to ensure we build a province that is better able to withstand pressure situations like this current drought and other similar events that are sure to follow in the years and decades to come. Agbare Deputy Speaker, die volhoubaarheid van ons stede en ons dorpe gaan vorentoe, bo aan die agenda moet wees van alle regeringssfere. Vir ons nageslag moet ons nou begin om stede en dorpe te bou wat meer klimaatbestand en volhoubaar is. Van ons kant af sal die Wes-Kaap regering begin kyk na maatreëls om dit makliker te maak vir ons gemeenskappe om self volhoubaar te word. Ons sal ook moet harder werk en kyk hoe ons 'n groen ekonomie kan uitbou en verder versnel. Daar is reeds in groot mate daarvan aan die gang en dit is 'n goeie idee veral om werk te skep. Ons gaan ook moet aanvaar en sê dat oor etlike jare sal dit glad nie meer die geval wees waar riool en afvalwater in die see, riviere en ons vlei lande gestort mag word nie. Die massa-suiweringswerke en hergebruik van water gaan moet geprioritiseer word. Geen dorp of stad in hierdie provinsie sal toegelaat word om nie hul water te hergebruik nie. Ons moet die uitdagings omarm en nie terugstaan nie en veral nie nou nie. Ons kan ook nie in isolasie die taak aanpak nie en ons moet saamwerk met die privaat sektor en alle sfere van regering om 'n werklike impak te maak. Slegs deur saam te werk gaan ons 'n groener en 'n beter volhoubare toekoms binne. Ek dank u.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Member Davids.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Premier, for that. Thank you, Premier, for that comment. You know you must go. The DA is laid bare for all to see. It is a failed party with failed leaders and failed actions. The DA is a total epic failure. It has no policy or principle left. It dumped all. It is empty. It destroys itself from the inside. It does not care for poor or ordinary people. Its leaders only fight for positions and pay. The DA prove it cannot be trusted with governance or the future of our children. It has no credibility left. It is dying fast. We hear a lot from the DA about fit for purpose, rule of law, a capable state, accountability, and merit. But it's really the DA. In reality, the DA is a party for a few privileged from the past, putting intolerance, race, hate, or fear, and run by a small, angry, liberal boys club from the back rooms. And I think Minister Windy is part of them. This is so obvious in the recent developments in the DA and where it governs, like here in the Western Cape and Cape Town, the so-called best-run administration in the whole wild world. The extremely poor performance of the DA with the self-fabricated water crisis and the deliberate scares of people that the taps runs dry also expose the DA real intentions to rob and raid the taxpayer in order to secure the jobs of a few in the DA. The truth is now out. The DA only terrorized people in order to leverage money from the national government, money that will be nepotistic feed some benefactors of the DA. Let us take a closer look at the latest allegations of the DA corruption. DA sources confirm that the DA leaders were involved in the negotiation up to 6 billion rand from national government in order to get a kickback from a foreign bidder or bidders who would supply a desalination plant to Cape Town. And we heard of very ugly fallout about this in the presence of national government, which led to the Cape Town Mayor, Patricia de Lille, being hunted and rubbished. On the back of suffering people's pain with dwelling water supply and service restriction, the DA still have no time rather to look at his party coffers than the plight of the poor. Why is only a foreign preferred bid promoted? This while the Dutch have, through their embassy in 2009, already briefed the Western Cape and City on cheaper and more effective membrane technology at the Radisson Blue Hotel, and even a local supplier of desalination plants around the globe, namely Graham Tech of Somerset West, had its generous rating offer ignored. The DA also indefinitely delayed the national government project to build a desalination plant for the province and the Berger River Dam. Scheme to store storm water in the Full-Flav Dam, as was announced last year in Honourable Premier Zille Soper. In fact, all of the so-called plans announced were national government interventions and were kept on the back burner to pave the way for the DAPLs. It was spitefully done to force a crisis and declare a disaster just to advance the DA's chosen funding partner, failed as a contractor. Further to that, former DA leader Tony Leon's company was hired to communicate the DA's doomsday message. Yes, he got the money, it's true, and so the fast day zero was born. The minister just spoke about the day zero. In the briefing session that we had at Tygerberg, the person of Cape Town said to him, that day zero is not good, they must use the name that they are using in the municipality. Now he's talking about day zero. Day zero is a thing that is making the people upset out there. Further to that, it is a farce and pretending there is no basin in the whole of Liebenhof to wash in. A kitchen bowl is mooted and used in public relations speeches. Yeah, Premier, there's no bowl basin in your... There are more questions than answers. The dual have to explain why it enters into a corrupt relationship with a specific supplier of desalination infrastructure based in Israel in order to collect money for its so-called war chest 2019 election campaign. Your 600 million. This fact is confirmed from inside the DA. The DA even has a special term for this leverage. It's in plain language, it means sweeten the deal. Corrupt. Sweeten the deal. The DA is corrupt and illegal, taken over by private interests outside government. Even Mamani is allowed to illegally parade.
Just 1 second, Honourable Olivier.
Speaker.
Do you want to ask your own member a question?
No, on a point of order, Speaker.
I'm listening.
Can you please, as you did when the minister was speaking, to ask us to please give the member an opportunity to address us?
Yes, I will do that.
I'm not sure what's happening there. I'm not sure what the MEC had this morning.
I will do that. That's order. You've made your point. That's the role of the chair, and I will control the House. Honourable Windy, is that a point of order?
He's wearing a small T-shirt for what?
Order. Honourable Davis, do you want to take a question?
I'm going to waste my time.
Unfortunately not. Please allow the member the opportunity to speak. Member, you may continue. Order. You may continue.
Even Mamani is allowed to illegally parade as the one that controls the disaster management of the Western Cape Drought. He is not even elected in this legislature. The DA in government is captured. Therefore, the Commission to investigate state capture must also look at the DA governments of the Western Cape and all municipalities where it is in control. The investigation agencies of the Republic of South Africa should also get involved to determine the extent of this undue influence over state resources to loot and rob the taxpayers. It is important to get to the bottom of this maladministration and grand-scale theft. The suspicious and sudden private visit a year ago by a so-called high-power delegation under spineless DA leader Musi Maimane to Israel should also be investigated. He was accompanied by prominent Jewish leaders and MPs, John Steenhuisen, and a former provincial advisor, Keon Hill-Lewis. Too little has been disclosed about this trip. The role of especially an officer of the court labor lawyer and MP Michael Begram should be put under the spotlight. He is a past president of the Jewish Board of Deputies. Also, his professional authority must determine whether any unethical conduct occurred. The Foreign Funding Foundation, in the name of Konrad Adenauer, should also come clean and disclose its role in facilitating meetings between the Israel developers wanting to build desalination plants here in Cape Town and the DA is in its city's office, as was confirmed by a former honourable member of this legislature and the DA's caucus leader, Rodney Lenton. And yes, also to it all the other things we have seen. Caucus chair. How the rezoning of the Founders Garden area on the foreshore for the benefit of DA-aligned developers was steamrolled through the legislature. How the Tafelberg school site in Park for low-cost housing was sold for a lavish Jewish school development. Maiden Cove and other prime land handed to developers.
Order, member. Just 1 second. Minister Meyer.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. If the honourable member made a point there is corruption, I want to know whether the member has referred the corruption.
Order, member. Order. Now take your seat. That is not a point of order. It's a point of debate.
Whether he has referred the corruption.
Order.
Maiden Cove and other prime land handed to developers at giveaway bargain prices. The corruptive and cruel coalition of construction companies that cheated the taxpayers with 5,000 million rand more than the agreed tender price for the Cape Town Stadium and bus services to Blouberg on then Mayor Zille's watch, and not a cent has been recovered despite the Competition Commission's guilty verdict and hefty fines. Perhaps it is because they have frequently visited the city civic centre even before the tender process. The corruptive communication contract for the province with what the public protector finds to be improper cadre deployment. Then you speak about ANC cadre deployment. You are the best in doing that under the carpet. Rigged accounts run by the DA cadres. The DA cannot even get proper water accounts right, as the present mismanagement show.
Order. Please come to order. The House is too noisy.
The present mismanagement shows a year ago's reading sent out with the latest highly inflated drought penalty prices. You must go to your municipalities and see how the people is sitting queues for the wrong accounts that is sent out by the municipality. In the city, in Drakensberg, all over, you are here, but you are accountable for Western Cape. You are accountable for Western Cape.
Order.
DA leaders like former DA leader Zille, who admittedly visited the leaders like former DA leader Zille, who admittedly visited the Sankworld compound of the Guptas, Saxon World compound of the Guptas to collect large contributions from the Gupta Empire and even thank them in writing. Speaking of being captured, you were captured before 2009 already. Of course, the indicators that nepotism practice took place to pave the way for smooth government access to people like the children of Honourable Premier Zille. Could it even include promoting their endeavours to get millions of rands from various sponsors? There are also various stories of how DA leaders in official vehicles visited various suppliers to collect brown envelopes, leverage so-called donation in return of the favour to be contracted to government like that in the city of Cape Town. Developers are milk dry. They should come forward and declare their interest and donations even before this practice becomes national law for political parties and their patrons. Then there is also the outstanding investigation about undeclared post parties for MEC sponsored by people with interest in state contacts, like the Honourable MEC Bongi, Matikizela and partner Mbombu.
Order, Minister Matikizela. I think you must withdraw that. Minister, that remark you must withdraw. If I heard you correctly, you said the member stole something. That is not parliamentary.
Yes, she did, Deputy Speaker. Yes, she did. No, you did. She did.
Minister, I'm not aware of such a finding.
She misappropriated funds of this legislature by making false claims.
Deputy Speaker.
Minister,
Deputy Speaker.
Just 1 second.
Deputy Speaker, you already asked the MEC to withdraw. If you refuse to withdraw, because please, Deputy Speaker, apply your rules.
Honourable Gilliam, I don't need your advice. I know what the rules are. The rules are very clear. Minister, if you refuse to withdraw, then there's only one way out, and that is to leave the chamber. But I give you the opportunity to withdraw.
Can I address you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, on this? No. You are not the Speaker. You are not the Deputy Speaker.
Order.
Can I address you, Deputy?
I will allow you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the member is making inferences which are not true. And when I'm saying the very same thing I'm asked to withdraw, she must also withdraw what she said now.
Minister, the inferences the member made was, I didn't hear a specific one addressed to a specific person. If that was so, I will look at the answer.
Specific person. She mentioned me by name.
I will look at
Yes,
that.
she did.
Did you say that, Minister?
Yes.
Order. Minister, Honourable Davis, just repeat what you said in reference to the Minister.
Okay, thank you, Chief First Deputy.
Honourable Gilliam, just take your seat, please.
I said there is also this outstanding investigation about undeclared post parties for MECs sponsored by people with interest in state contracts.
Yes, that is not that's not a clear finding, and the member Matikizela is saying that there was a clear finding of theft. And that is not what the finding of the House was. Order.
Minister, to apologise.
I will get to that.
And withdraw. You must.
Premier.
Then you must leave.
Order.
Deputy Speaker.
Premier, just 1 second. Honourable Gillian, I saw you first.
Deputy Speaker, can I please address you? Please. You made a ruling on the MEC. You made a ruling, the MEC refused. You allow the MEC to address you. Now you're allowing a debate and a statement by the MEC. I think it's out of order.
Thank you, Member. I take your point. I will not allow a long debate. I simply want some clarity from Minister Matikizela. Minister?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I withdraw.
Thank you. We continue. Honourable Davis.
There are recent allegations from their peers that certain public representatives all kinds of patronage from government suppliers. It seems all these claims show the DA is rotten to the core. The internal strife and factional fights in the DA open a can of worms, like what happened with worms or wombs. It's like what happened with Patricia de Lille. Premier Helen Zille had it in for Patricia after she stood up against her about the land in the Jewish area in Sea Point. And then the fight begins. There the fight begins because Premier Helen Zille is too much in love with the Jewish mafia.
Member, order.
The DA is clearly a hideout for thieves.
Member Davis, speak through the chair when you address the Premier. Honourable Wale.
Deputy Speaker, I've been listening very closely to the contribution by the honourary member. There has been a running theme about anti-Semitism that is coming from the member. And I believe that it is not, firstly, I think it's unconstitutional, I think it's illegal.
Order. Order.
But secondly, the unmoderated tone of the member against the Jewish nation and against the Jewish people is unacceptable, and I believe it should be withdrawn.
Thank you. I will have a look at that in Hansard and if necessary come back to the House. Honourable Gillian. Honourable Gillian.
Deputy Speaker, I still want to know what was the point of order from the Honourable Chief of Wiley.
Read the Hansard, you will find it very clearly. Honourable Davids, please continue.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It seems
Order, 1 second. Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I really feel that the member calling the Jewish people mafia communities, he must withdraw that statement. It's an insult. It's an insult to that community. It's an insult to our community.
Order, I did
He
not
must
hear
withdraw
that.
that statement.
Order, I will go back to Hansard if that was said.
Undemocratic and it's unheard of the ANC people to speak like that.
Order.
It's an insult to the people of this country.
Thank you, member.
I would accept your ruling if you investigate. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I agree with your sentiment. If that was said, certainly it was unparliamentary, but I will look at the Hansard and come back if that is what was said. And please continue. Your time is almost up.
My time is almost up, yeah. Money collections must be rounded up and dealt with decisively. The new dawn sweeping South Africa now should also visit the Western Cape, Nelson Mandela, Joburg and Tshwane metros areas. Clean audits clearly do not translate into clean or good governance in the DA. Forget about clean audits, give us clean water, because people are drinking dirty water out there. That is the most basic of service delivery, and the DA fails us dismally on that. The DA has also sent out signals that it is expended and suspended Premier should go. They are scared to bring a motion against her. Now they want an early election to end her term. She already abdicated her duties to Maimani. Honourable Zille is the weakest link. Goodbye, send her away. No, my time is not up. Sorry for you. Then the Honourable Zille, Premier Zille, the audacity yesterday to speak around the ANC policy of, the ANC policy on land reform. What about your 1% in this province? And that scheme, you call it a scheme and it's not even working. We want an investigation on all the land reform projects of this province.
Thank you, member. Your time has now expired, and I've given you some extra time as well. The Honourable Nkosela.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I welcome the State of the Province address by the Premier. Right from the outset, I need to state that the Democratic Alliance will not tolerate racism. The ANC started this racism in 2005 when the then boyfriend of Noma India Mfegeto was the mayor of Cape Town. Called colored people drunkards and useless and lazy people. The same ANC now is calling Jews criminals. And this ANC must be condemned. We've got to condemn this racism and onslaught on people because they don't look like you. It does not take me to look like you for me to defend you.
Order.
It's very important.
Order, Minister.
We'll never accept that.
Order.
Let me continue, Honourable Deputy
Member, just
Speaker.
take your seat. Just take your seat. Honourable Olivier.
Deputy Speaker, I just want to check with you. You've made a ruling that you will consult Hansard on the statement, alleged statement made.
Yeah.
But the member on the opposite side now is saying the ANC is saying that the Jewish are criminals. So I'm not sure where does
Thank you, member.
that ruling from.
I will come back. I did say I'll come back, and the member may continue.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, hate for other is hate and it's unconstitutional. We are the bastions of hope and we're defenders of the Constitution. Honourable Speaker, I dedicate my speech to the former mayor, the late mayor of Overstrain Municipality, Rudolph Smith. On the 5th of January, I woke up to the news of the passing of Rudolph Smith, who had undergone a benign brain tumor operation, and the procedure went successful, but as a result of some complications, he succumbed. And this day, it's important to remember that Honorable Alderman Smith, the mayor, stood for equality, stood for humanity, and he was respected by his people and loved by his community as the true servant of the people. For this, the DA values its contribution not only to the municipality, but to the people of this province, and for his contribution, he will truly and forever be remembered. Amen. I would like to further pay homage to the former Western Cape Premier and the City of Cape Town Mayor and my former mate in council, Alderman Gerald Morkel, who passed away on the 9th of January as the former Deputy Mayor, as well as the former Deputy Mayor of George, Alderman Daniel Maritz, who passed away on the 6th of January 2018. It's important to acknowledge and remember and recognize their contribution to the service of the people of this province, and to them I say thank you. Thank you for your years of undying service and selfless contribution to the people of the Western Cape. We will truly miss you all for your zest for service to our beautiful nation. Hambani kahle, rest in peace, my dear brothers. Honorable Speaker, the Premier was very clear and unambiguous in her commitment to service of the people of this beautiful Western Cape. The Democratic Alliance truly commends the Premier for providing a concise diagnostic program and full account of our government successes and challenges, honestly setting a roadmap for all departments to deliver services with an accelerated speed to the people. A clear fact that reverberated throughout the House. It was clear, everyone was happy that the DA Western Cape government delivered the best services to all communities and to all people in this province. It is a government whose sole resolve is to improve the quality of lives of our people through effective and efficient service delivery. We live in the era of the fourth industrial revolution, and the Premier was very clear. The investment in new means of communication, the investment through the data that is going to all wards in this province, more than 1,600 connection points, that is real service to the people. Honorable Speaker, earlier this week, the Auditor General applauded the Western Cape municipalities for achieving a highest proportion of clean audits in the country with a staggering 71%, which is the highest in this South Africa, and nobody follows us because we are the best. He attributed our successes to the sound leadership with an emphasis on embedded culture of accountability achieved by Minister Predel's department, focused on interventions and support programs that are because of a clear resolve by this DA government to support municipalities for them to succeed. Success means services to the people, better life to the communities, and more jobs, because jobs is what we need right now in this province, and especially under the circumstances that we find ourselves when Zuma was the president. Now we will see what will happen when Zuma goes, because he is gone, but we want to see what's going to happen. Saldanha Bay Municipality, through its fourth generation integrated plan, has prioritized youth development by creating sustainable opportunities for skilled and capable workforce, to support an inclusive growth path and to develop socially integrated, safe and healthy communities. These are some of the examples of what we do when we are in government. I don't have the whole day to present my speech, but let me, before I lose time here, talk about what we've done in Oudtshoorn when we were in government, when the DA took over. We made sure that we turn around the situation and paid ESCOM that the ANC government, through your mayor there, Gordon April, who's in jail, we made sure we turn the systems around and we pay ESCOM and all other creditors on time. And I thank the DA mayor in Oudtshoorn for turning that municipality around. Canaland is the same situation, and we have paid ESCOM on the record time because the DA believes in servicing creditors, in ensuring quality services to the people. We are changing lives. What is becoming increasingly clear, Honorable Deputy Speaker, is that where the DA governs, it does so to improve the quality of lives of the people through better living standards by creating opportunities and delivering best services, which are dearly needed to our communities. We still have to teach the ANC how to do this. In Cederberg, for the first time in the history of the new local government, there is a clean audit under a DA government. Because that is the truth, and it's a fact, and we should all celebrate. If you don't clap, then you support corruption. What is also important, Deputy Speaker, is the reality that has sunk in Beaufort West. Thanks to the Speaker, because the Speaker is the constituency head, was a constituency head there for some time when Truman was the mayor there. And now Honorable Dalen Mitchell is now the constituency head there. The things are changing. The wheel is changing. And Dipo can dance in Beaufort West. We are busy cleaning that municipality, and I want to request, in ending, I want to call on the Premier and the Minister of Local Government to ensure that we accelerate this forensic audit that is taking place to fix that municipality of Beaufort West for good.
Thank you, Member. Your time has expired. Honourable Minister of Education, Debbie Schaefer.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Order. Order.
Yesterday, the Premier delivered a report on our progress in achieving our vision of an open society in
Order, Honourable Diana.
in which everyone has the opportunity to live a life they value. Some in the ANC still do not seem to understand that the State of the Province Address is a report on the issues facing the province and progress made in delivering on that vision. I guess that is understandable, given that in their party there really isn't much of consequence to report on. Hence the recycling of the same old cliches and fake news in every speech they make, not to mention the blatant racism we've heard here today. In contrast, the Premier's speech focused on many issues, including the unprecedented drought crisis we are facing, which is putting pressure on all our departments, education being no exception. Over and above that, we have been seeing a decline in real budget, which is resulting in more and more overcrowded classes and insufficient funding to provide what we want and need to provide. Yet despite all of this, our education system has seen sustained improvements. I'm pleased that Minister Motshekga last week revealed that the Western Cape is the top achieving province in the country according to the DBE's new format of reporting on the NSC results, known as an inclusive basket of criteria. The basket takes into account important indicators such as the percentage of physical science and mathematics passes, the throughput rate, distinctions and bachelor passes. Minister Motshekga indicated in a parliamentary reply that the new inclusive basket of criteria is a more integrated approach to reporting that reflects the key indicators of learner performance. It's just a pity that this was not announced at the matric results announcement. Last year, the Western Cape also was in the top spot. In the Western Cape, we have always said that the quality of the pass is more important than purely the league table position. The Premier detailed many of our achievements in results yesterday. Since 2010, a year after the DA-led government took office in the Western Cape, we have seen an increase in the pass rate from 76.8% in 2010 to 82.2% in 2017, an increase of 6%, while the cohort increased by just over 3,000. We've also seen an increase of 7.5% in the percentage of bachelor's passes achieved since 2010, the highest maths pass rate in the country last year at 73.9%, and the second highest physical science at 74%. We remain the province with the highest rate of retention from grade 10 to 12, showing that we really do put the interests of our youth first and do everything we can to give them the best possible opportunities. I'm proud to say that the Western Cape retained 64.3% of our learners from grade 10 in the 2017 NSC, 12.8% more than Gauteng, and 22% more than the Free State. This is still not enough, and we will continue working on it. We do not want to lose any of our learners. I'm especially proud of all 8 of our education districts, which each once again achieved a pass rate of over 80% with very good retention rates. 3 of our learners yet again took top positions in the country. Improvements in language and mathematics are key focus areas for this government, and I'm delighted that the results of the 2017 systemic tests have shown marked improvements in mathematics and language in the Western Cape. People who do not understand the education system do not realize how difficult it is to move a system this big up by even 1 percentage point, never mind doing so in a context of increasing learner numbers and decreasing real budget. And yet we have improved in our systemic results continuously over the years and have seen a sustained improvement in the results despite seeing a large increase in the number of learners writing. In grade 3, we saw an improvement in maths of 2.1% in 2017. This sustained improvement is noteworthy, given that the number of learners writing increased by almost 5,500. In grade 6, the pass rate for maths remained approximately the same as 2016, but with numbers writing increasing also by almost 5,500. We saw also a huge improvement a few years ago, so it is most encouraging that this has been sustained. In grade 9, the pass rate for maths decreased by 0.5%, which is unfortunate, but the number of learners writing increased by about 2,500. In the language tests, we saw a huge improvement of 5% in the grade 3 pass rate, with the number writing increasing by nearly 6,000 in 2017. This is truly gratifying. We have seen a sustained improvement in the grade 6 language tests, with the 2017 cohort slightly improving on last year, also with an increased cohort of almost 5,800. Grade 9 learners achieved at substantially the same levels, with an increased number writing of almost 2,800. Ensuring that pupils attain the requisite level of literacy and numeracy at a young age is of great importance. Literacy and numeracy are the foundation on which all other learning happens, and I'm therefore pleased to see the sustained improvement in grade 3 language and mathematics tests in particular. This is a real tribute to our committed members of the WCED team across the province. I'm also once again pleased that the Western Cape Education Department has achieved a clean audit for its 3rd consecutive year for the 2016-17 financial year. This is unique in education in our country, if not the world, and a phenomenal achievement. We have maintained our focus on pro-poor measures, but it is becoming increasingly difficult in the current financial climate. We try to manage our resources as best we can, yet we still have ANC-aligned Tony Ehrenstrike taking us to court over the closure of one particular school, Eitze. It seems he would rather let learners stay at a school that is continuously vandalized and where the circumstances are not conducive to good education than encourage them to move to a nearby school where the matric pass rate last year was 97.3%. And yet, amazingly, the Eastern Cape is closing about 1,000 schools, and I have not heard one peep from COSATU about that, let alone a court case. While we are working under extremely difficult circumstances, we also have the drought to contend with, trying to ensure that all our schools are able to stay open in the event of day zero. It is a huge logistical exercise trying to provide for 1,500 public schools across the province. But with the hard work of our excellent infrastructure team led by Mr. Archie Lewis, together with the Department of Public Works and our disaster management team, we have made huge progress in our plans to ensure that our schools can stay open in the event of day zero. The Premier held a meeting several weeks ago, setting out our plans in detail, and I'm not going to repeat them here. But what I do want to mention is that an integral part of our strategy is also to reduce the consumption of water at schools. Last year, the WCED joined the ShopRite Smart Water Meter Challenge by contributing 40% towards each smart meter installed at schools. This outstanding and water-saving initiative involves the installation of smart water meters that measure and report on water use by the minute. It also includes plumbing maintenance and interventions to effect behavioural change among learners and their teachers. To date, smart water meters have been installed at 112 schools, which has so far resulted in at least 21 million litres of water and 1.1 million rand being saved in just over 3 months. ShopRite sponsored 100 smart water meters, and with the support of various corporate sponsors and the Western Cape government, a total of 358 schools will all receive smart water meters. This is an excellent example of the private sector rising to the challenge of a crisis and working with all parties on a solution. I must thank each and every one of the 82 companies and all those involved in this initiative. Necessity is the mother of invention, and whilst we have been maintaining quality education under very difficult circumstances, we have also continued innovating, which is one of the core values of the Western Cape government. Our Collaboration Schools project is now at 10 schools, with 2 new such schools opening at the beginning of this year. In spite of resistance from certain quarters, we have had excellent reactions from communities, and they are happy with what they are seeing. We are very appreciative of the partnerships with the private sector that have enabled this project and are excited at the possibilities this has for improving education in poor communities. I remain convinced that this model can make a real impact in addressing the ongoing inequalities in education between wealthier and poorer communities. Also, the development of our new School Evaluation Authority is well underway and is part of our Transforming School Accountability project. In this too, we have received support from the private sector as they see the immense value in it to improve education. Accountability for all of us is another key value of the Western Cape government, and we are leading the way in promoting it. The Western Cape Provincial Schools Amendment Bill has now been tabled in the legislature, and I'm hoping it will be passed in the near future. Yesterday, the Premier addressed the issue of citizen safety and highlighted the national government's failure to address safety in our province. This failure has a dreadful impact on our schools, learners, and teachers. We all know that gangsterism is a societal issue, but the abject failure of national government to adequately resource the SAPs in the Western Cape is, in my opinion, either a deliberate strategy to destabilise the Western Cape or gross negligence. A whole-of-society approach is essential, but law enforcement is a crucial part of that, and it has been missing in action. After reading the President's Keepers, we have a better idea why. So given that the ANC does not care about the safety of people in the Western Cape, we in the Western Cape government have made good progress in doing all we can to address the societal issues as well as the safety issues within our limited mandate and our very limited budget. As chair of the Provincial Strategic Goal 2 Steering Committee, I have been very pleased that during the last year, this committee has been accredited as the Interministerial Committee as part of the National Anti-Gang Strategy. As a result, we have the presence of high-level SAPS delegation, the NPA, Justice Department, Department of Correctional Services and State Security at our quarterly meetings. We have had good, honest interactions, and we greatly appreciate the improved interaction between our departments and the commitment they have shown at these meetings, both to the meetings themselves and to addressing crime. In addition, our Chief Director District has been appointed as the chair of the School Safety Priority Committee of the Prov Joints, which is also enabling better and quicker information sharing in our quest to keep our communities safe. The above is also the result of transversal intergovernmental cooperation, with the Department of Community Safety playing an integral role. With them, we have been able to roll out safety kiosks at a number of our highest risk schools and 57 SROs at 39 schools, thanks to our relationship with the Metro Police in the city. We are also developing a tool for principals to upload information regarding the state of their school infrastructure, so we can assess the priority needs. Of course, the ANC has now announced a cut in the education infrastructure grant, thus again showing how much they do not care for our vulnerable learners. But as I said, we are also doing what we can to address the issues that can lead to people becoming involved in gangsterism. Other than the focus on keeping our learners in school longer, we are also focusing on providing them with better after-schools opportunities as part of the after-schools game changer. This is a critical intervention, not only to keep our children safe and occupied after school, but also to engage with them in extramural mathematics and language programs, to assist with homework, extra tutoring, sporting activities, and cultural and behavioral programs. Our various government facilities all provide safe spaces that create a sense of belonging, which we believe will prevent our youth from looking for this in gangs. So we are doing everything within our power to provide the best opportunities for our youth. And considering the constraints we are under, our performance is that much more impressive. Imagine how much further we could have been if we'd had a capable state and an accountable government nationally for the last 2 decades. But 2019 is around the corner. Madam Speaker, as the DA-led Western Cape, we will continue working to bring about the kind of change we need in this province and South Africa. Change that will grow the economy, support social progress, and create jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Schaefer. I now see the Honourable Member Beverly Schaefer.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Premier, Honourable Speaker, the Quarterly Labour Force Survey released on the 13th of February 2018 has revealed once again that the Western Cape has the largest gains in employment in South Africa. Our province has managed to create the 106,000 more jobs in the fourth quarter of 2017, and not the 106 as the Leader of the Opposition has stated, and remains leader in job creation in South Africa. The report also revealed that the Western Cape remains the province with the lowest expanded unemployment rate in the country at 23%. Might I remind the opposition that the Western Cape is also at the grips of the worst hydrological drought since 1906, yet we still triumph over the 8 other ANC-run provinces when it comes to creating sustainable employment and opportunity for our people. Indeed, growing and diversifying the Western Cape economy, creating jobs and securing those investor confidence in the Western Cape is just one of the major successes that a DA-run government brings to the South African people. Even our newly elected president, Baba Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, knows just how well our flagship city is run, owning a massive property. In fact, he's on his second one, right on the Atlantic seaboard, taking frequent jogs on our Sea Point Promenade, promoting hashtag Unkamba must fall. Interesting, Member Davids, interesting, in your so-called anti-Semitic area. I would like to remind the opposition
Order, please, members.
that this president chooses to live in the Western Cape, knowing full well that he receives the best service delivery, can walk through a safe city centre, and is surrounded by bountiful business opportunities.
Please.
It is quite evident that Ramaphosa ukhethe intshona koloni. Honourable Speaker, the Western Cape drought disaster is the single largest challenge to governance and economic growth in our province.
Honourable Olafir, Honourable Schaefer, kindly take your seat. Honourable Chacham.
Sorry, Speaker.
Is it a point of order, Honourable Chacham?
Which I want to direct to you, Speaker. We only use 3 languages in this province. Afrikaans, English, and Xhosa. I don't know the other language.
That is not, Honourable Chacham, that is not a point of order. We don't ridicule each other based on language, race, colour or creed. Thank you. You may proceed, Honourable Schaefer.
Honourable Speaker, the Western Cape drought disaster is the single largest challenge to governance and economic growth in our province. However, there are a number of unsung heroes who must be commended for their personal sacrifices to alleviate water shortage and ensure sustainable supply. Our farmers and agri-workers have had to endure an 80 to 100% water cut in the Western Cape, substantially reducing their crop output, with some farmers in Grabo even donating water from their private dams to our province. Let it be known that the Western Cape farmers and agri-workers bear the brunt of the drought disaster and suffer consequences far more severe than the inconvenience of a short shower. I want to take this opportunity to commend our agricultural sector and remind our farmer and agri-workers that we remain committed to their prosperity as a major contributor to our provincial economy. To our farmers and agri-workers, we salute you. In a province which allocates 72 million of its budget to drought alleviation in the agricultural sector, supporting emerging farmers and preserving jobs in our rural areas, farming can and will flourish. In a province where 5.5 million rand has been reprioritised to mitigate the impact of natural and biological disasters on the agricultural sector during the drought, farming will be protected. In a province where the implementation of smart farming methodologies and conservation, where climate change resilience strategies are at the forefront of agricultural innovation, agriculture and agri-processing create bountiful jobs and a flourishing industry. If the ANC wants to know how to run South Africa's agricultural sector, they need only come to visit us in the Western Cape. Then again, we already know that, Member Chacham, Ramaphosa ukhethe intshona koloni. As part of Project Kalisa, the Western Cape's economic growth strategy through key sector development, tourism has become a booming industry in the Western Cape and the centre of growth in South Africa's tourism sector. Tourism to the Western Cape has observed an 11.6% increase during the busy December period, bringing in billions of rands to our province and creating thousands of jobs for our people. It is really no wonder we have the lowest unemployment rate in the country. In comparison, the ANC-run city of Durban saw a loss of almost 500,000 visitors between 2015 and 2017, having failed to morph their city into an attractive holiday destination. In stark contrast, Cape Town now has most recently secured direct flights from Austria, Rwanda, Angola, Singapore, and Hong Kong as part of a strategic Cape Air access route. In the Western Cape, we do tourism best. If the ANC wants to know how to market our country as a vibrant, enticing, and desirable destination, they need only see what we are doing in the Western Cape. This is probably why, Member Chacham, Ramaphosa ukete in Chona Koloni. Honourable Speaker, in his budget speech, Minister of Finance Malusi Gigaba
Order, please. Honourable
value-added
Schaefer,
tax.
kindly take your seat. I just want to remind Honourable Chacham that we have 11 or I think 12 official languages. You were not familiar with this one. Thank you. You may proceed, Member.
Minister Malusi Gigaba increased value-added tax to 15% for the first time since 1994. We know that this move is to recover the millions of rands our economy hemorrhaged under Zuma and the Guptas, which was siphoned directly into the private coffers in Dubai. This tax hike has also been implemented to fund the ANC's bloated national cabinet and to provide Cyril Ramaphosa's, the president's salary increase of 700,000 more per year than even Zuma earned. Yes, 700,000. It seems the ANC's winds of change are seemingly blowing more money into our new president's bank account at the taxpayer's expense. Honourable Speaker, our new President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his State of the Nation address...
Kindly take your seat. The Chief Whip has arrived. Sorry, the Deputy Chief Whip.
Can the member take a question? I'd like to ask her
No, hold on. Hold on. You address the chair, Honourable Danke. You ask me if the member will take the question. Kindly take your seat and I will relay the message. Take your seat, please. Take your seat, please. Member Schaefer, will you take a question?
Our President
no question. She's not taking your question. Take your seat, please.
In a State of his Nation address, highlighted the importance of foreign investment in South Africa for economic growth. However, the newly elected president also pledged his support for land expropriation without compensation. I would like to remind the ANC that land expropriation without compensation severely dissuades foreign investment in our country and gravely threatens our economic growth potential. It appears that the ANC's very own policies are at loggerheads, and considering the capitalist success of the current president, which I'm not sure that Member McGarker will feel comfortable about, it is no wonder that he's now dithering on the land issue. What a conundrum. President Ramaphosa also has a deafening silence on a report by a high-level panel appointed by Parliament, which presented devastating evidence of what is happening with people's rural, customary and urban land rights. It seems President Ramaphosa is too scared to confront our chiefs. President Ramaphosa is tap dancing around the land issue, and the ANC will fail to grow our national economy by expropriating land without compensation. There is no question about it. Honourable Speaker, a report by Stats SA in August last year detailed that between 2011 and 2015...
Member Schaefer, kindly take your seat. Members, it is inappropriate to drown out a speaker on the floor. Please cooperate and allow the member to continue. You may proceed.
The South African economy shrank and the percentage of youth unemployment rose beyond 50%. I find it very hard to believe that President Cyril Ramaphosa, whose job it was as the ANC's head of government business for many years, can promise economic growth and job creation with such a putrid track record in his regard. We know that the DA in our province...
Order, please. Kindly take your seat, please. Member Joseph.
Speaker, I think we need more order in our House. The opposition is driving the Speaker out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Joseph, your point is sustained. Could I request all members to cooperate? Yesterday there was lots of howling and screeching. Please, you owe it to the electorate out there to behave yourself in a manner that is appropriate. So I'm asking you to cooperate. Interjections are allowed, but you cannot drown out a speaker on the floor. Unfortunately, that is considered unparliamentary. You may proceed, Member Schaefer.
That's why we know that the DA in our province leads in economic policy in South Africa. And that is why, Member Chacham, Ramaphosa ukete in Chona Koloni. Honourable Speaker, the results speak for themselves. Under the Democratic Alliance, the Western Cape's economy grows the fastest and creates the most jobs in South Africa. This is something to which the ANC can only inspire at a national level. Under the DA, agri-processing, world-class tourism and technological innovation have become synonymous with the Western Cape. Although there's been a leadership change within the ANC, we know that the Zuma allies which remain in the party will continue to shackle our economy with corruption. To the ANC, I say this. If you want to implement the changes you so desire at a national level, by all means take a page out of our book. It is really no wonder why. Kumapondo, Onke, Cyril Ramaphosa, Ukete, in Chona Koloni. I thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize members. Can we get a sense of order, please? Before I request the member to speak, can we get some order? I recognize the Honourable Member Bernard Joseph.
Thank you, Speaker. It is quite obvious that the Premier is not serious of addressing the challenges in the Western Cape. The only new item, the only new item in the Premier's speech is the drought in the Cape Metro, Drakensberg and Stellenbosch, a situation predicted about 20 years back. Incompetence and ignorance can jeopardize the existence of 4.7 million people in these 3 municipalities. The Western Cape Provincial government is blaming the national government for failing to act and vice versa, while the poor majority will suffer because of the neglect. The deaths of 3 firefighters must be laid squarely on the shoulders of the DA administration, as firefighters are working for hours on end without being relieved, which leads to the exhaustion and the inability to save their own lives when facing life-threatening situations. The notion of highlighting achievements from 2009 and numerizing it is very disingenuous. As EFF, we want to hear about economic freedom within our lifetime. We want to physically observe an improvement in the lives of the poor. Can this Premier honestly, after personal observation, say that the DA intervention had positive economic and social results? It seems that the DA government in the Western Cape is therefore the white privilege, majority only. It is a matter of the rich get richer and the poor poorer. Nothing is being said on expropriation of land, nationalization of banks with the Western Cape, especially Stellenbosch, the financial headquarters of the province and the pinnacle of white monopoly capital. Public schools are being closed down, while private white schools receive huge assistance from the Western Cape government. The Premier is quiet on the protection of children against gangsterism and emancipation of women. This morning, at the school, high school in Mfuleni, a learner was suspended for recording an incident at the school. This is not on. How can we address such situations and we suspend learners that is trying to make a difference in the school? Anyone can come and reaches the right numbers and figures but are thus noticeable in the development of the poor? Can the very same poor communities physically experience improvement in their lives? The economic and social circumstances of the people in Khayelitsha, Menenberg, Guguletu, Elsies River, Nyanga, Langa, Mitchell's Plain, Paarl East, and other areas are indicative of a surrounding failure by the Democratic Alliance. They are more concerned of getting rid of Patricia de Lille than governing this province to the benefit of the poor. Physically, visits by the EFF councillors during 2017 exposed massive shortcomings in the healthcare system that the Premier praises so much. Sick and older people are queuing as from 4:30 in the morning and show the door come 5 o'clock. Overworked, tired and stressed personnel and ambulance services with turnaround times of 2 to 3 hours to respond. Medical alerts, much to be desired. What is important is that the vacant posts within the health sector should be filled immediately to ensure that we can improve service delivery and then that we can create jobs in this province. This thing of assuming people can only get sick between 8 o'clock in this morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and people can't get sick during weekends must immediately stop. And a prime example is the area of Ashton. A simple solution to open clinics 24 hours for 7 days a week and to fill all vacant posts in the Provincial Health Department. The 50th celebration of the world's first heart transplant is made by the omission of Hamilton Naki from Guguletu, a black South African who physically executed that transplant, and because of apartheid legislation, the honors went to Chris Barnard. The EFF encouraged the Western Cape government to do the honorable thing and recognize the contribution of our hero Hamilton Naki. The Premier is concentrating on the symptoms of social decay, security, drug abuse, fatal alcohol syndrome, gangsterism, the high murder rate, etc., and not on eliminating the root causes of such social ills. What is gravely concerning for the EFF is that nowhere the Premier indicates mistakes by a government. She is concentrating on a clean audit and expect accolades for that. One cannot praise a fish for swimming. Your officials are getting paid to ensure clean audits. The Premier is basically saying that everything is hunky-dory in the Western Cape, while the majority of African and coloured people, the voter base of the DA, no, there is no such.
Thank you, Honourable Joseph. Your time has expired. Kindly take your seat, please. Thank you.
It's not even 6 minutes.
Your 6 minutes has expired. I now see the next speaker. It's the Honourable the Minister of Health, Minister Norma French Mbombo.
Thank you. Honourable Premier, Madam Speaker, members of the House, guests in the gallery.
Member Gillian, I heard that. If I could just call you to attention, please. You may proceed, Minister.
Okay. Molweni. Madam Speaker, firstly, I want to thank the Premier.
Sorry, Minister Norma French, please take your seat. We have an honourable member, Minister Norma French Mbombo, for the record, Member Gillian. Let us not deliberate on something that could border on becoming unparliamentary. Please.
Yes,
Yes,
I just want to say, Honourable Mrs. Matikizela, congratulations.
Honourable Gillian, you clearly know more than anyone else. I have not received any formal notification, so I will have a conversation with you much later. Thank you. You may proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Firstly, I want to thank the Premier for her SOPA yesterday. She tracked Western Cape's good story since 2009 and also provided the guidance paving the way for the Western Cape government for the 2018-19 budget year. And in this debate, I will attempt to further highlight the good story through a health lens, reflecting on some challenges facing the South African health system as a whole in general, because whatever happens in South Africa, it also impacts on health. Firstly, health is an investment. A healthy population is the absolute basic requirement and a prerequisite to building skills and the human capital required to jumpstart the economy. HIV, TB, and trauma, amongst others, are responsible for a significant reduction in the potential years of life lost, particularly among the economically active population. Health departments across the country continue to face a growing burden of disease in size and complexity, especially around the multiple morbidity and the drug resistance. We are facing poor socioeconomic conditions, increasing social ills, with the Western Cape inundated with the violence resulting from an increase in gunshot injuries and also substance abuse. Also the issues of the migration, especially the Western Cape and the Gauteng, that is affected. And this poses a significant risk. The demand for healthcare continues to grow, and this is unlikely to change in the short-term outlook, given the trend in the social determinants of health and well-being. Healthcare in the country is under tremendous pressure, and we need to apply innovative strategies to continue to deliver quality health services. And when one scans the health departments in the rest of the country, there are important warning signals, and we should not take the high point of the Western Cape Department for granted. Madam Speaker, the province has better health outcomes compared to other provinces. People live longer with a higher life expectancy for both males and females. For example, compared with the Eastern Cape and Free State for males, where we see the 54 and 52 years respectively. In the Western Cape, for males, it's 64 years, and for females, 69 years. HIV prevalence among the women aged 15 to 24 years attending antenatal clinic is at its lowest level, around 9.6% since 2009. KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Mpumalanga and Eastern Cape provinces, have the highest HIV prevalence among women attending antenatal clinics. The TB infection rate used to be a problem in the province. The effort we put in the fight against TB saw the highest cure rate of above 80% for the new cases. We have seen a drop in infant and under 5-year-old child mortality rates since 2009. Western Cape has the lowest maternal death in the country. The delivery rate for the under 18-year-olds has shown a steady decrease since 2010. Of course, we still have got to show concern around the teenage pregnancies, but we do have programs in place around that. Madam Speaker, my department is acutely mindful of the economic constraints and competing priorities faced by the country and the consequent implication for the budget allocation to health sector. A worrying trend is the increase in people presenting with multiple diseases. This situation places the provincial health system under enormous strain, and in the context of significant budgetary constraint, coupled with a protracted drought, 2018-19 is likely to be a very challenging year. The increasing cost of medicine and the water scarcity in the province impact more on health. I was going to explore more on the issues of the waiting time, but I see the Honorable Joseph is not here. We, like the rest of the country, sincerely hope that 2018 will be the start of a turnaround and multiple fronts that will result in a better situation for all. While it may be early days, the strengthening of the rand and the exchange rate in recent weeks is a positive signal that creates optimism. When rand drops, price of medicine goes up, meaning that the services have to be zikoshwa pants. We have invested over the years in building capacity, including leadership, people, processes, systems, and building blocks such as infrastructure and IT systems to get us to this high point in our history, where we can claim amongst the best health outcomes in the country, unqualified audit for 13 years, and a clean financial audit for the past 2 years, and generally a well-performing department. We provide the largest footprint of the social safety net with its broadest reach to vulnerable families and communities in a climate of increasing poverty and social stress. We are, despite these challenges, focused on strengthening the resilience of the department. We have put in place certain programs and projects to improve the health outcomes of all the citizens of this province and to combat the challenges we are faced. We have prioritized clinical services as opposed to corporate admin support services. Hence, some of the posts will not be filled, but instead, we put more appointing staff around the nurses and doctors and other clinicians. Within service delivery, primary health care, district hospitals, and EMS is to be prioritized more than the regional and central hospitals under the circumstances. We are reaching out to people in far corners of this province to ensure rural access to health care, notwithstanding the farming districts where they have to travel kilometers to access amenities. In the Western Cape, we have got the highest percentage of households to access a public health facility within 30 minutes at 91.5%, followed by Gauteng at 88.4%. The national average of poor communities to access health facilities within 30 minutes is about 75.4%. We commend the District Health Services team for providing health services through the mobile clinics and health posts throughout the province. Noma kanjani, where there are no physical clinics, there will be mobile clinics. And all our clinics have got a visiting general practitioner at a minimum of at least once a week. Furthermore, we provide a patient transport system through HealthNet that operates at 230 pickup points across the province, as the Premier has alluded to. Patients no longer have to pay large amounts of money to reach health facilities. In addition to providing this service, we also ensure that the pickup points are safe, and we engage with local government to work with us to ensure the safety of these. In Matsikama, for example, we provide subsidized transport in partnership with the local car owners to pick up patients for doctor's appointments as far as Klebrand Railport, for example, which is the furthest point. And then in some parts of the central Karoo and Eden, some patients make arrangements to be collected from home when they have to access services like George and so on. And you don't get this in anywhere in South Africa except the Western Cape. Madam Speaker, I must commend the entire department for their resilience over the past year during the fire outbreaks in Swartland, Knysna Hospital, and recently in the Mitchell's Plain Hospital and also Grooteskier Ward. Staff worked around the clock to ensure the safety of each patient and also everyone. No patients died during all this process during the evacuation. In Knysna, our staff members and their families were also greatly affected by the disaster. As, for example, the member of the opposition spoke about, we were too much in the Knysna, but not forgetting the mere fact that our staff members, the members, public servants working in the province were also affected. Even though they were affected, they worked around the clock to ensure that we still deliver the best possible service for our clients, regardless of the situation. The drought conditions persist, and the serious consequences for the provision of health services are very concerning.
Honourable Speaker. Minister, kindly take your seat, please. Whatever it is that's causing you to have your colleagues laugh there, it's inappropriate. Can I ask you to refrain, please? Thank you. You may proceed, Minister.
With the drought conditions persist and the serious consequences for the provision of health services are very concerning. The department is working with other departments and also with the municipalities to implement mitigation strategies. We have a watertight preparedness plan to mitigate the risk of services disruption due to the lack of water of health services in the Western Cape. We've got the three-pronged strategy, which I'll share in our budget speech. One is to reduce water consumption at the healthcare facilities. Number two is to be prepared for the possibility of water rationing. Number three is to be prepared for the total loss of municipal water supply. There was a question about the issue of the day zero. Notwithstanding the fact that in some parts of the country, for example, in the Eastern Cape, the Amatole District Municipality, day zero has always been there, where we find that the Butterworth Hospital has to be closed. In the King Edward VIII Hospital, in KZN, always there's been no water. So the day zero has always been there. where the nurses have to use buckets collecting water from the ground level to the upper grounds for that. So day zero has always been there. I want to thank the staff, community and patients for reducing consumption and not only in our health facilities, but also throughout our communities. Madam Speaker, the Western Cape still remains a center of excellence, providing the best care under challenging circumstances and a shrinking budget. We reach far more people than what
Order,
our
please,
credential
Honourable
allows.
Yankee.
We also actually, let me put it there, we also assist other provinces, for example, to provide spaces for their medical specialists who are unable to continue their vocational training due to the poor state of health services. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the investment and the gains we have
Honourable
made
Yankee,
need
I
to be
am managing.
protected.
Sorry, Minister, kindly take your seat. I happen to be the presiding officer and not you. You are the chief whip, or what is it, the deputy chief whip? Please manage yourself accordingly. Thank you. You may proceed, Minister.
Investment and the gains we have made need to be protected and sustained, and this requires stability in the levels of resourcing. Health remains a priority in the province, with the department receiving one of the largest shares of the provincial budget. The department, notwithstanding its history of good performance and gains to date, finds itself in a fragile state between service pressures and budget cuts. We recognize the dire financial constraints faced by the province, actually even across the province, in the national government. This drives me to the next point, universal health coverage. We are committed to universal health coverage, UHC. That is the need to ensure access to quality health services and financial risk protection for all in South Africa. South Africa spends more on a health per head count compared to its counterparts. Yet we have poor health outcomes and inadequate coverage of services. Whilst the Constitution guarantees everyone the right to access health services, but that guarantee is in vain when some families become poorer because of medical costs, when they have to send their loved ones to private care due to the failure of public health to provide quality services. The exchange of money should not happen at the point of clinical service. People should start to save and pay for their care irrespective. That the families now they get overburdened and have to sell their belongings to cover other costs of private health care when public services fail the people. It cannot be right. Hence, we welcome the universal health coverage to address the equity, the quality of care and access to care. What we don't accept is the funding formula that national government is proposing through NHI. Not only is
Sorry, Minister, kindly take your seat. Honourable Gillian, I cannot hear them laughing, and neither can I see them. Sorry, but they're not, I certainly can't, and I don't think it's affecting what the minister's speech. But could I request the ministers, please refrain from laughing? Thank you. Honourable Gillian, I am not going to engage. It was not disturbing the proceedings of the House. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's all play nicely now and not disturb anyone else until the end of the session. You may proceed, Minister.
We welcome universal health coverage to
Sorry,
address...
Minister, take your seat. It is not a new rule, Honourable Diana. It is Rule 41, which allows me to manage this House with dignity and decorum. And sadly, the behaviour over the last few days, or yesterday and today, leaves a lot to be desired in terms of dignity and decorum. So I'm appealing to all honourable members to cooperate. And I'm speaking to you, Honourable Diana, so I don't expect you to respond from your seat. It is completely unnecessary, and we need common decency and respect as we engage. You may proceed, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We welcome universal health coverage to address equity, quality of health care and access to care. What we don't accept is the funding formula that national government is proposing through NHI. Not only it is expensive and unaffordable, but it will put too much of a burden on taxpayers, which is mostly the middle class, who are also expected to build hospitals, roads, social grants through their tax. in addition to many other things. We have
Order, please.
Time permitting, probably I will have provided a 101 in terms of what's the difference between NHI and universal health coverage. What I was explaining is the universal health coverage. The NHI is the financing model to fund universal health coverage. That's what we don't accept. We are opposing on the formula used to fund universal health coverage, which is NHI. We have submitted, and we are not only complaining, we have submitted proposals to assist national so that we can participate in all the NHI streams.
Kindly finish up. Your time is expired. Thank you.
Yes. And we are already putting up plans to pilot some of these components in Saldanha through the PSG3, and the pilot will assist the national. We are working already with the employers and also with the GPs
Thank you, Minister
in the area.
Mbombo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Order, please, members. If there was a workshop required, it's about manners and behavior and common courtesy and respect, which sorely is lacking in this chamber today. Respect begets respect. Let's treat each other with courtesy. Members, I'm appealing to both sides of the House. Please, we're nearly through the session. Can you just manage yourself with dignity and decorum, please? Honourable Lecker, that is the second time I've had to address you, Honourable Lecker. Thank you. I now recognise the Honourable Chief Whip Wiley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm sorry that the Leader of Opposition isn't here. He's done a hit and a run. But he raised some questions that I'd like to answer. The first one was his confusion about SOPA and the revised dates. SONA, which is a national address, was scheduled for the 8th, but due to the chaos within the ANC, was postponed indefinitely. A letter from Mr. Magaka to the Premier on the 14th used as his motivation constitutional and cooperative governance non-arguments. They simply do not apply, and Mr. Magaka was once again seriously confused by sending his letter to the Premier and not the Speaker, as the Premier has no authority over the scheduling of the parliamentary programme. Nor do the rules of this institution...
Order. Members, sorry, Chief Whip, take your seat. You can heckle, you can interject, but you cannot drown out a speaker on the floor. I'm requesting your cooperation, please. Allow the Chief Whip to continue. You may proceed, Chief Whip.
Thank you. Nor do the rules of this institution insist on any preference as far as addresses are concerned. The Premier replied to Mr. Magaka on the 15th. At the time of Mr. Magaka's letter, SONA still had not been scheduled, but history will record that the Zuma resigned that evening, and the next morning the NA Programming Committee agreed to a new date for the 16th, the same day of SOPA. In light of these dramatically changed circumstances and with a new president, it was entirely understandable to reconsider the SOPA date, and after broad consultation, including the member of the ANC, it was agreed to postpone SOPA. That was the one item that I wanted to address. As far as the registrar is concerned, the registrar was appointed early in December. We haven't had committees since then. We had a recess between then. And in any case, the registrar's task is clearly defined in the Code of Conduct, and I'm sure he's following it, given he's a man of high qualification. The member Gaka talked about Imizama Yetu and said that the DA did nothing. As far as that is concerned, I'd just like to say the provincial government aided with the provincial...
Can you take your seat, please? There's a member on the floor. Member Gillian.
Thank you, Speaker. Whenever the Chief Whip is referring to our Leader of Opposition, can he call him the Honourable, please?
Thank you. Your point is noted. We are all honourable members in this House. Thank you, Chief Whip.
With all respect, the Speaker calling a person a member is also acceptable in this House.
Thank you. So we have
The
honourable
provincial
members.
government aided with the provision of mobile clinics and assisted fire victims with new medical cards.
Sorry.
They provide
Sorry,
6.75 million
Chief Whip,
rand.
I'm really sorry to interject you. If you can take your seat, the member said they are honourable members. So the ruling is we have members who are honourable, who act honourably, so we will refer to each other as honourable members in this House. That is the ruling, Member Gillian. Now, Member Gillian required clarity on what I said. So, no, it's not.
Speaker?
Chief Whip is
Speaker.
yes, Honourable Dugmore.
On a point of order, we've taken note of your ruling, but clearly you must be aware of the fact that Member Wiley, Honourable Member Wiley, in fact attempted to undermine your ruling by saying that he himself refers to others as a member. So could you please clarify in particular to Honourable Member Wiley that he cannot invent the rules himself. You have made a ruling and he shall from this point on refer to honourable members. He cannot make the rules himself.
Honourable Dugmore, your point is sustained. We have the rules. The Chief Whip Wiley is familiar with the rules. We are all honourable members in this House, so let's manage ourselves in a manner that is honourable. You may proceed, Honourable Wiley.
Thank you. 6.75 million was spent for the electrification of 181 dwellings, of which 40% are new connections and the remainder for the fire victims. Formal housing project is due to start within the next
Chief
in
Whip, I'm
3
really
years.
sorry to ask you to take your seat again. Honourable
I'd like to
Diaki.
hear the member. He's too fast. If he can just be slower.
That's not a point of order, but I will take your seat, please. Thank you. Chief Whip Wiley, if you could clarify what you have done in the area of Misappropriation, that is the request. You are speaking too fast. They can't hear what has been done
Speaker,
there.
with
Honourable
respect, if I wanna
Chacham, if you were to listen, you would pick up the response. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Speaker, and I hope that I'm going to get credit for all the interruptions that I've had. Thank you. These housing opportunities include apartment blocks and 1,000 housing opportunities, including tar roads, sidewalks, stormwater system, water to each house, sewage system, etc., etc. And here are some photographs, just for the record. Here is the ward councillor, here's the deputy mayor, here's the Minister of Health, here's Xanthia Limburg and Minister Marigazela. Here's the constituency head, and here is a whole constituency of DA members. All of them visited Izamieto at the time of the fire.
Thank you, Chief Whip. Members, I'm certain the posters will be distributed in due course. Thank you.
Fixing South Africa, Speaker, is going to take more than just a walk in the park. Like every reasonable citizen, I listened with great anticipation to the words of our new president last week. For my part, I sat just meters away from him and paid rapt attention to Mr. Ramaphosa, filled with hope and anticipation. The anticipation was brought out of a tense frustration built up over the previous 9 years as we witnessed the systematic dismantling of a capable state, the infestation of our civil service with strategically appointed crooks, and a wholesale looting of the taxpayers' hard-earned money. Some misguided and ill-informed people, both in the ruling party and its fringes, like to find scapegoats for the lack of progress in redressing the wrongs of the past and the poor economic performance. Invariably, they fall lockstep into the narrative that white people and big business, the so-called white minority capital scam run by a now bankrupt PR company in the UK, are responsible. This despite the ruling ANC have been in power for 23 years and having control over 8 of the 9 provinces, the vast majority of municipalities.
Please.
Blaming the past and remains for the some the easy way out of accountability. So it was with some relief when the new president, a pragmatic and tolerant man, clearly stated that irrespective of race, gender or creed, all South Africans will have a fair and equal chance in our country. Again last night he hit the right notes when he said he wanted things done on time and efficiently. He wanted results. We even quietly accepted his repeated comments when he said that expropriation without compensation would become the norm because, at the heart, South Africans are a generous and giving people. It remains to be seen how this will be done, and the President, who is instrumental in guiding our new constitution to its birth in 1997, I was part of the Constitutional Assembly, will be very much aware of the clauses that were key to a peaceful transition at that time. He will be first to admit that the remedy to greater prosperity and equity lies in the application of sound management principles borne out by hard work, accountability, fairness, and maximizing opportunities. That comes one's way. He has certainly been a role model in this regard. One does wonder, though, if the President's opportunities had been switched, if he had attempted to become a farmer before he was a successful industrialist. His keenness to transfer agricultural land to others would be so enthusiastic. Being a productive farmer is far from the romantic image some have as this hard-scrabble, hands-on, lonely existence. Some of Mr. Ramaphosa's colleagues will gladly testify to this fact. Of course, if you're stinking rich and profit is not all the be-all and end-all, then you can dabble in agriculture as a status pastime. This is what we see again every now and again because of the weak rand has been an incentive for investors to build show farms mainly geared to tourists and the elite. These sort of farms certainly have benefits, but not for the masses and not for the production of basic staples that keep their citizens alive. In this area, the national government does not have a proud record, and many a state endeavour has seen a complete collapse of formerly successful and productive farms. On the contrary, the essential sector has seen some of the worst excesses of corruption and collusion where truckloads of state funds have simply gone walkabout, ending up in the pockets of people who would not recognise a callous hand even if it was stared them in the face. Time will tell how this works out, but one prays that the economic sanity will prevail. The President has caveated his intentions with sustainability and balance, and this must be welcomed. But the President has other challenges. In trying to balance the books, his Finance Minister has opted to rather penalise service delivery vehicles, namely the provinces and municipalities, by drastic cuts, than to hold the real wasters of public funds to account. As the Premier yesterday spelled out, this is going to have a significant impact on this province. The Western Cape has already endured several austerity budget cuts in recent years, and there is no fat on this body. This, coupled with the increasing dysfunction of those national departments operating in the Western Cape, means that times are going to become more difficult. Despite the outstanding assessed performances of the departments of this province and the underperformance of the national departments is giving the public the impression that this province as a whole is underperforming. These factors are seriously threatening the thriving economy of this province, one of the only two showing any significant hope and growth in this country. And the false narrative is being driven by Mr. Ramaphosa's own party here in this province and most notably in this House. Take the drought situation. Despite the cold facts, the ANC on the other side of the aisle have sought to deny the crisis exists. Last year they colluded with Mr. Khan, the National Department's local head, to blame everybody but themselves for the lack of bulk water provisioning, which is a national function. Last week, during the Parliamentary oversight briefing visit, the DDG of Infrastructure Development flew down from Pretoria to publicly chastise Mr. Khan for his dereliction and promised to depoliticise the topic going forward. She was a breath of fresh air. Naturally, the loudmouths on the other side did not attend that visit, for the last thing I want is to be confronted with the facts. Now, the narrative of big capital conspiracies and hoaxes has spread to grassroots level, driven by COSATU and ANC activists, most notably Mr. Suleiman Stellenboom. One must seriously ask the ANC, what if you succeed in your endeavours to get citizens to carry on using water carelessly and the city does run out of water? Will you come to the aid of the 4.6 million people? Contrary to the President's enthusiasm earlier this week, the military simply does not have the capacity to assist in any meaningful way. Neither does SAPS, by admission, even have required numbers to fill their daily Vispol shifts, let alone supervise a metro of wide mass crisis for an indeterminate period. A similar total uncaring disregard for human suffering has been shown by the ANC and its sycophants about the almost continuous failure of PRASA to provide even a basic service. Hundreds of thousands of Cape Town and Cape citizens cannot get to work, are losing their jobs and families as a direct result on a daily basis. Now they have shot the messenger, the local manager, Richard Walker, Probably because he had openly said the destruction of trains and infrastructure is organised sabotage. Maybe it's because of his close association, a working relationship with Minister Grant.
Your time has expired, Chief Whip. Thank you. Thank you. Honourable Joseph.
Sorry, Speaker. The Chief Whip lost 2 minutes of his time, and I've kept record of that.
Thank you, Member Joseph. You may take your seat. Or order, please. Just to ensure that there's a common understanding, there is a timekeeper who clicks, and every time there is an interruption, the clock is stopped. So I take my cue from the table staff who alert me that the time has expired. So if we do go into points of debate, the clock is actually stopped. And I have had sight of it, so I can confirm that the 9 minutes have, in fact, run its course. Thank you, Chief Whip.
Given that there's consistency that is required, Speaker, normally what you do is to say your time is always about finish off.
Finish up.
I'd just like to note that in this case, it never happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we get some order? I now recognise the Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I find it strange that the Chief Whip of the DA uses every opportunity to actually undermine your rulings. We all know very clearly that there's a process of how the time works, but he keeps on making a point of undermining your rulings by wanting to remind you of your job. And I'm very concerned, Speaker, about this particular tendency. But, Speaker, Premier Zille refers to her State of the Province address as being her 11th such address, and also the penultimate or the second last one before the end of the second term of office of her administration. We are reminded that the Premier's first SOPA was a long time ago, in 2009. The DA has governed this province for 9 years. It's a long period. And I believe the jury is out on the performance of the Democratic Alliance as we approach the national and provincial elections in 2019. But what we can say with certainty, because that is what the people's experience is of this 9 years, is that under DA rule in the Western Cape since 2009, firstly, crime and violence have worsened in the Western Cape since the DA took over, impacting mostly on working class and poor communities in the Western
Honourable
Cape.
Dugmore, kindly take your seat, please. Minister Wendy, is it a point of order?
Honourable member, take a question. Take a question.
Thank you. Minister, Honourable Mackenzie, Dugmore, will you take a question? No, sorry, Minister Wendy, the Honourable Dugmore will not take a question. Thank you. You may proceed.
So firstly, what the people of Khayelitsha, of Manenberg, of Guguletu, of Riversdale have experienced, firstly, in this 9 years, is that crime and violence have worsened in the Western Cape since the DA took over. And in regard to this point, we will never forget that one of the first things that this DA provincial government did under the leadership of Premier Zille was to dissolve the Bambanani volunteers. That was one aspect. And by doing that, they have undermined a community mobilization to help our schools be safer and to help our communities be safer. This is something that our communities will not forget. The second point is that the people of the Western Cape are clear that substance abuse, the abuse of drugs, under the DA administration has worsened since 2009. It has become an endemic. Thirdly, the people of the Western Cape, in particular African and coloured people, but also progressive white people,
Honourable Dugmore, kindly take your seat. Your member is on her feet. Honourable Gillian.
Thank you, Speaker. And that is why that's my point of order.
Honourable Minister Fritz, there is a member on the floor Could you please refrain? An honourable member on her feet. Member
Thank
Gillian.
you, Speaker. Can I ask that if the Honourable MEC Fritz, when he is pointing at Honourable Dagmo, in making the remark, it's your association with gangsters. Is he referring to the Honourable Dagmo or what? And can you ask MEC Fritz, because this is not, this is my second attempt. Because Speaker, Honourable Fritz is really out of order in this.
Thank
in
you.
this house for the whole day.
Honourable Gillian, your comment is noted. Member Joseph, is it in connection with the same point of
Yeah,
order?
I think the ANC have many times referred to Minister Plato and gang relationship. They must take it when it comes their ways now.
Thank
and the ANC is full of gangsterism.
That's not a point of order. Can I get back to the business of the day, Minister Fritz? Minister Fritz, it is said, order please. Manage yourselves, people. You're asking me to rule on something and then you become unruly. Minister Fritz, you heard the point of order. Can I ask if, as Member Gillian has stated, that is indeed what you said? Was it aimed at the member or at the party?
The ANC. He represents the ANC. They represent the ANC. And they must go read the president's keeper.
Thank you, Minister Fritz. I asked a question. Thank you for clarity. Minister Fritz has indicated that he referred to the party and not an individual. I will have to take his word at that. Thank you. Honourable Chacha.
Referring to the party, why is he pointing a finger at him?
Honourable Chacha, I can't answer that question.
So that's what you must rule on, Speaker.
I can't answer that question, but I would like to recommend. I would like to recommend that the video of the proceedings be distributed to members. Then you can actually see where the fingers go, not just now, but in all sittings. Thank you, Member Gillian. You've heard Minister Fritz's response.
Yes, I did, Speaker. But I will also ask you to please ask all members in this house to stop pointing their fingers, because it is unparliamentary. All.
Member Gillian, that is one of my pet peeves. I don't believe people should be pointing fingers, and I also have an issue around dignity and decorum, which I try and impress upon this House all the time. I do ask that you put your finger in your pocket. In fact, I once asked the Premier to put her fingers on the desk, if I remember. And I'm asking you all to please cooperate, and in a spirit of respect and dignity and decorum, let us proceed. Thank you. Now, Honourable Makaleni, I am actually going to ask you to leave. I'm sorry. You have proven to be disruptive, and I have now reached the end of my tether. So at the end, no, hold on. I will deal with Minister Fritz, but your ongoing little rant, and I'm now asking you to leave the House in terms of Rule 44 for the rest of the day. Please, Honourable Makaleni. Thank you, if you don't mind. Honourable Makaleni, kindly leave the House for the rest of the day. Thank you. Honourable Olivier.
Speaker, can I address you?
Yes, you may. I'm speaking to every single member here right now whilst I'm listening to Honourable Olivier.
Speaker, you have made your ruling now.
Yes, I have.
And I'm going to ask you, Honourable Fritz, since the Deputy Speaker was here this morning, as we started, we even asked that Rule 44 be invoked, but it was never done. But I'm happy you are doing it now. You've done that now. But I want to say to you, I'm not challenging what you've done now, but Honourable Fritz was the most unruly member in the House today, but he still sits here. And I ask you to be consequent when you make such decisions or such rulings, so that we are covered by you sitting there. But at this moment, we feel that we are now
Honourable
one member
Olivier.
short, but The member that is the most disturbing member in this house is still
Honourable
sitting here.
Olivier, your comment is noted. I will take it as guidance. However, I have only been in this chair for just on an hour, so I can't attest to what happened before I got here. I will, however, strive to be consistent in my rulings, which is why I say it applies to all honourable members in this House. Thank you. Now may we proceed. You may proceed, Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, it's interesting that Honourable Fritz is carrying on the way that he is. When we were in Nelspruit during the by-election, and that is a VD where the ANC won a very strong majority, the people there are saying openly that that particular MEC, and I'm actually directing it to him, that it's MEC Albert Fritz, is manipulating the process of allocating grants to community organizations and rewarding DA members. And yet he wants to come into this House and create trouble where on the ground in Nelspruit, the people don't want to see him because of his abuse of the processes of allocation.
Honourable Dugmore, kindly take your seat. The Chief Whip, Minister Fritz, please take your seat. The Chief Whip is on the floor.
Is the honourable member prepared to take a question whether he laid a charge or not?
Okay. Honourable
Has he
Dugmore, are
laid
you
charges to the
prepared?
police?
Are you prepared to take a question? No, not prepared to take a question. Minister Fritz.
In the whole spirit of openness, I would like the Honourable Dugmore to come and have a look at our granting of books. He makes an accusation in the House. So can you keep quiet so that I can make my point
Thank
of order?
you.
Can you keep quiet so I can make my
Minister
point?
Fritz.
He makes an accusation in the House. Let me come check my books. Who I
Minister
give grants
Fritz,
to?
kindly take your seat,
It's so
please.
pathetic. That's what it is,
Sorry.
pathetic.
Order, please.
Oh,
Chief Whip
boss.
Wiley. Chief Whip Ace. All members, order, please. Sorry, Honourable Lecker, the Honourable Ace has been on his feet. Your Chief Whip, you may proceed.
Honourable Speaker, that's very clearly disrespect to the House and to yourself. He was carrying on walking out and still shouting. I want you to please make a ruling that he must leave this House, because there was no ruling in that. Because he might just return in the next 5 minutes again, please.
Honourable Ace, in his absence, I cannot ask the Minister to leave because he has already left the House, except to say that when both Member Makaleni and Minister Fritz left, they chirped and commented and never just left quietly or graciously as respected. So again, there is no way Minister Fritz will be able to come back into this House without me having to caution him in terms of his behaviour. Members, we are mature, senior MPs representing the electorate out there. This behaviour is appalling, to say the least. That adults can behave in a manner that resembles a schoolyard is beyond me. I simply cannot, I fail to comprehend this kind of behaviour. Now, we cannot say that this is a legislature that we can showcase to Channel 4, 8 or YouTube or anybody, because if anyone were looking at this, they would ask, what are we paying these people for? I'm sorry, the behaviour is inappropriate and we need to be called to order. No, I'm talking to both sides of the House. In fact, I was addressing the other side of the House. But Honourable Chacham, let us proceed and get through the business of the day. Thank you. You may proceed, Honourable Dugmore. Premier, you're on a point of order.
Yes, on a point of order. Is it parliamentary for the Honourable Gillian to shout twice at Minister Fritz, "You are a piece of rubbish"?
Okay. Sorry. Honourable Lecker, is it related to this? Sorry. Sorry. I will... Okay. Your member is on the floor. Is it in connection with the same point of order, Member Lecker?
Thank you, Speaker. I'm rising, Speaker, to request that as and when Member Fritz come back to this House, you ask him to who he was relating to when he said, "You are a piece of rubbish," to which Member Gillian responded to. I would like you to ask him that question when he comes back.
Okay. I have taken the order, please. Honourable Mackenzie. I have heard both points of order. I will refer to Hansard. I have taken your guidance when the member returns. Unfortunately, I cannot deliberate in his absence, but it is noted and I will follow it up. Maybe now proceed. Member Gillian, I heard your request.
No, Speaker, you didn't give me an option now. It is my right for you to ask me if I did do what the Premier is saying. Now, I will tell you what I did.
Okay. Sorry,
If you give me that opportunity.
I was just talking to the issue of Minister Fritz, who left, and the comment that Member Lecker said he had made, to which you had responded.
Exactly.
But the Premier had raised a point, and she asked if it's parliamentary. So will you indeed tell me what it is you said?
I will tell you what happened.
Thank you.
Minister Fritz, when he was leaving, MEC Fritz, when he was leaving, was pointing to this side of the House and using the words that the Premier is referring to. I then asked him, who is the rubbish? That was what I did.
Okay, so I will check Hansard, because there's clearly an issue around what was said. But just a minute or two before that, we talked about pointing to each other. And it's completely, it's unbelievable. Can we just settle down and proceed now? Honourable Dagmar, I take it you're still on the floor. Yes, let us proceed and get back to the business of the day.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, we were on the point in terms of assessing the period of 9 years of DA governance of the Western Cape. It's a long time. And the practical experience of our people, I was arguing, is that we can say with certainty that under DA rule in the Western Cape since 2009, and I want to repeat this. Firstly, crime and violence have worsened in the Western Cape since the DA took over, impacting mostly on working class and poor communities. And we all remember that one of the key things that the Premier did when she became Premier was to disband a community-based anti-crime initiative called Bambanani, and we know the impact of that. The second thing that our communities have experienced since 2009, secondly, is that substance abuse has reached endemic proportions under the DA. Once again, the ANC government had developed an integrated strategy towards substance abuse with a focus on the youth. It was that strategy that the DA never implemented. And since we have seen this dramatic increase in substance abuse across the Cape Flats, and that is a legacy of the DA government. Thirdly, our people have experienced under DA rule since 2009 that employment equity, the representation of all our communities, especially historically disadvantaged communities and senior managers from African and coloured communities in particular, that employment equity has been reversed, and the gains made by the African National Congress up until 2009 have been reversed. And you can see this in the senior representation of coloured and African managers within the senior echelons of this administration and in certain local governments. So that is, thirdly, how the transformation agenda has been pushed back over these 9 years. Fourthly, our position as the province with the best matric pass rate has slipped, with both Gauteng and Free State in recent years having assumed that particular mantle. That is a fact, what our people have experienced, and this again comes down to the fact that the DA administration has not taken the equitable share from our budget and made sure that teacher-pupil ratios have been maintained at the levels that they should be, whereas on the other hand, spending millions of money on an e-learning strategy and actually neglecting to put our teachers in the classroom. And that is a choice that they've had in regard to the equitable share. And then fifthly, our people have experienced, without a shadow of a doubt, the people of the Western Cape have experienced that the scale and pace of housing delivery has been slower when compared to what was achieved under an ANC government. So that is the beginning of a process of beginning to look at these 9 years, of 9 long and hard years, under the DA is that in those 5 areas, that life for the majority of people in this province has got worse. Now, right from the start of this approach, the DA, led by the Premier, has been, in fact, to place short-term political gains. In other words, trying to mobilize coloured voters from the Western Cape against African voters, against white voters. For that short-term gain and the fueling of a racial agenda in regard to issues of equity that I've referred to, that those short-term gains have been placed ahead at actually trying to build social cohesion and unity in this province. And the Premier has been complicit in that, in regard to her fanning that particular agenda. The fact that her party has not acted against her in terms of making statements in support, in fact, in support of the legacy of colonialism, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and not actually having been disciplined by her party. So if the first citizen of this province talks up colonialism and refuses to acknowledge the devastating impacts on our communities, it is no surprise that she is the first one to roll back the gains of employment equity made by the ANC in this province. And the legacy of the DA under Premier Zille will also be of a provincial government which actually failed to build a cooperative approach to working with our national government, and in the process, that has actually impacted negatively on the people of the Western Cape, because there was a choice to build a particular kind of opposition that was a cooperative one, pointing out the mistakes, but ultimately trying to solve us. When we see how certain members of the DA who've tried to build a culture of oversight in regard to the work of the standing committees have been dealt with. We know that there are allegations which the DA has still not dealt with, that in fact there was fraud and corruption committed at the DA Provincial Conference in regard to certain ballots having been destroyed, and that is the extent that the DA has gone to resolve problems related to factionalism within their own ranks. But if you're the governing party and you are divided, clearly the disaster which we're seeing unfold in front of us in regard to how the water issue has been managed at the City of Cape Town is apparent, because anyone can see that what is at play here really is an attempt by one faction in the DA, led by Premier Zille and MEC Madikizela, and in cooperation with people like Ian Nielsen and others in the city, to actively move against Patricia de Lille. Now, people can talk about all sorts of rumours in the social media, about tenders and so on. But, Premier, I want to ask you directly, in your response, to indicate to us whether you are aware...
If I may direct you, if you are asking a question, please do it
I'd like
through the
to
chair.
ask the Premier
Thank
through you a question. Are you aware, Honourable Premier, of disputes within the Democratic Alliance in regard to procurement processes to deal with the water crisis? Are you aware of those differences? And if so, what are those differences about? I also want to make it very clear that, in fact, the people of our province have actually become victims of this factional problem within the DA. That is what we're actually beginning to see here. And for the first time, we've had the ludicrous situation of the DA leader coming to this province ostensibly to direct the campaign against the drought and to avoid day zero, which has actually been a vote of no confidence, and actually has been the result that this DA in the Western Cape has been unable to deal with its problems. That's an indictment, and the people of our province are not going to forget that in terms of how you've dealt with it. But these 9 years also mark a litany of broken promises. And in fact, besides broken promises, we have seen the failure, through you, Speaker, to the Premier, the failure of this Premier to actually uphold the provisions of the national and the provincial constitution. And that is a fact. It was in 2009, Madam Speaker, when Premier Zille stood up in this House, in a State of the Province address, and promised the people of the Western Cape to appoint a Children's Commissioner. And for those that might not be aware of this, our Constitution actually requires, it's a must, that a Children's Commissioner and an Environmental Commissioner have to be appointed. In defiance of the Provincial Constitution, this Premier, after 9 years, we are sitting in a province without an Environmental Commissioner and without a Children's Commissioner. If we look at the situation of children in our province, that are affected by domestic violence, substance abuse, fetal alcohol syndrome, amongst a number of pathologies affecting our children. The people of this province will never forget that it was this DA, under the leadership of Premier Zille, that did not appoint a Children's Commissioner who he or she could have, in fact, highlighted the problems facing our children and begun to mobilize the resources required and the attention on this particular issue. So it is a promise broken to the people of the Western Cape, and the children and future generations will never forget that, because it has actually directly affected the ability of this government to more effectively deal with the burdens facing our children. This has amounted essentially to the failure to protect the most vulnerable in our society. It's amounted to a failure to implement our constitution. What it in fact means is that the people of this province were misled when the Premier, through you, Speaker, promised the people of the Western Cape in 2009. And I find it cynical in the extreme that in the Premier's speech of yesterday, she failed to even mention the Children's Commissioner or even apologize that the Commissioner has not yet been appointed. The children of the Western Cape and future generations will not forget this broken promise. I want to put it to the Premier through you, Speaker.
Order.
That if the Premier had not defied the provisions of the Provincial Constitution and actually ensured the appointment of an Environmental Commissioner, we may, as a province, have better managed the current drought we are facing. But no, you and your administration, Premier, failed to appoint the Commissioner. I want to actually remind members of what our Provincial Constitution actually says about the powers of the Environmental Commissioner. And the question that I would like all of us to ask is, if we'd had that Environmental Commissioner, would that Commissioner not have actually picked up in monitoring the situation, the issues that we face, and been made recommendations and proactive? Because what the Constitution actually says in 71.2, it says that in the exercise of his or her powers and functions, the Commissioner must ensure that the conservation of the environment in the Western Cape and must give attention to the need to balance the goals of environmental conservation and sustainable development. That our provincials of organs of state must assist and protect the Commission to ensure the independence, impartiality, dignity and effectiveness, and also that the Commissioner...
Sorry, Honourable Dagmoy, or Member Gillian.
Speaker, please. Member Josephs is doing running commentaries every time. You don't refer to him. It's like Anmakar.
Honourable Gillian, I was actually looking at Member Joseph, which is why I did not see you, because I was waiting for the next comment. But Honourable Joseph, take that as a caution, please. No interjections, but no running commentary. Sorry, Honourable Dagmo, you may proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. So what the Constitution says in terms of powers and functions is that...
Sorry, Honourable Dagmo. Member Davids, if you would stop engaging him, it might be easier too, because there seems to be some banter going on here. Both members, I require your cooperation, please. You may proceed.
Speaker, in regard to the powers and functions of the Environmental Commissioner, our Provincial Constitution states that the Commissioner must investigate complaints in respect of environmental administration, recommend a course of conduct, any provincial organ of state or municipality whose activities have been investigated, and act in accordance with the principles of cooperative government. The failure, the Commission and Children's Commission, ANC.
Order, please.
It is our view that the DA has in fact succumbed to pressure from developers not to appoint the Environmental Commissioner, as it would throw the spotlight on the cosy relationship between some of these developers and those responsible for fundraising within the DA. I think it's important, Speaker, that Honourable Schaefer comes openly to this House and tells us about the fundraising that she's alleged to have been doing, the trips that she's alleged to have been obtained from certain developers, and what was the return in regard to those particular favours. We welcome a statement from the member, because what we have is that a refusal by the DA,
please,
to reveal its links with developers, and clearly the developer lobby has been very strong with MEC Bradell and with the Premier not to appoint this Environmental Commissioner, because they know the focus that would bring on the developers who have been given red carpet treatment, especially by this DA administration. So in the process, key environmental concerns such as water conservation have been neglected. No obligations have been imposed on developers to ensure that water-saving technologies become conditions, in fact, for development. Instead, it has simply been the pursuit of profit with little regard to sustainable development. That is the legacy of this DA administration. It is also interesting to note, in fact, what has not been mentioned in the speech of the Premier. Speaker, the fact is that since 2009, the Premier has never once met the Griqua Royal House or the Congress of Traditional Leaders in the Western Cape or the Kai Kurana leadership. In 2011, through you, Speaker, Premier Zille declined an invitation to attend the Adam Cock commemoration at the castle. Work done by the ANC up until 2009 to consult with traditional and Khoisan leaders to set up a House of Traditional Leaders in this province was simply stopped by the Democratic Alliance when they came to power in 2009. This can be described as disrespect and, in fact, the brutalization by simply not listening to the voice of traditional leaders. It reflects, in essence, a colonial mindset and arrogance and the complete disregard of the victims of colonialism. We as the ANC will make every effort to ensure full consultation with all our communities and traditional leaders once the National Traditional Leadership and Khoisan Bill published in 25 is ready for consultation. But the point is, there was national legislation which allowed other provinces to set up houses of traditional leaders, which this province for 9 years has failed to do. That is the fact, that is a legacy of these 9 years. They have failed to set up a House of Traditional Leaders in terms of existing national legislation. We also take note that the Premier has been silent about the fact that there are 12 rural communities that fall under the Transformation of Certain Rural Areas Act, the so-called Tranca areas, which has still not been resolved. We know that this is not only the concern and the responsibility of national government, but also the local municipalities where these 12 communities are located. Not once has this Premier ever spoken to those traditional areas of Genadendal, Slangrivier, Wuppertal, Elim. She has never talked about that, and the fact that in certain cases it is DA-run municipalities who are holding up the process of finally resolving the trunca issues. This, once again, is a disregard by the Premier for indigenous communities of our province. It's another example where a cooperative governance approach, instead of a blame and complain approach, which has characterized the way the DA has tried to govern this province, is required to bring this matter to a close in the interest of our rural communities in the areas such as I've mentioned. The Premier's speech, Speaker, is also silent on another example where the very victims of colonialism, the poor, domestic workers from Sea Point, their efforts over 20 years to save for social housing in the Sea Point area have essentially been squashed by the decision, despite the recommendation of
Honourable Dagmo,
provinces.
your time sadly has expired. You may finish that sentence as was drawn to your time has expired.
Even regard to the 15 minutes that
Yes,
we lost.
I've taken my cue
I would like to,
from the table. Stop. Please finish that sentence.
I would like to,
which I did not afford the Chief Whip earlier.
By saying that we have just started an analysis of 9 years of DA rule. And as we go along, the people of the Western Cape will confirm the view that the reality of DA governance has impacted negatively
Your time
on
is
the
up.
majority of
Thank
people
you.
in this province.
Members, honourable members, I now see the Minister of Economic Opportunities, the Honourable Minister Alan Winde.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, first of all, yesterday the Premier sketched the 9 years.
Order, please, Honourable Dianki.
Sketched the 9.
Jy gaan ook loop, Boeta. Yeah, sorry. If you persist, then you will walk too. So you on a cautionary. You may proceed, Minister Winde.
I hope my time hasn't started yet.
No, it hasn't. The clock hasn't started.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
A couple of
As has
seconds.
been said by the Honourable Doug Moore, the last 9 years, well, that's exactly what the Premier did yesterday. She showed the state of this province after 9 years of DA government. And it's going to be interesting because the state of this province after 9 years of government had to take place in an environment of 9 years of ANC Zuma government.
Minister Winde, would you Take your seat. There's a question.
Sorry, Speaker, I just want to know, is it parliamentary for a minister to dress like that in a sitting?
That is not a point of order, Member Davids. You may proceed, Minister Windy.
Thank you, Speaker.
This
term of 9 years under Zuma government, where we have just had the State of the Nation address, and that state of our nation at the moment has got a junk state, has got a no-growth state, has got a captured state, has got SOEs that are in a real state, has got a corrupt state, a no-business confidence state. This state under ANC rule and Zuma rule is in a very, very sad state.
Kindly take your seat, Honourable Chacha. Is it a point of order?
Let us not be abused.
It's order. Is it a point of order, Honourable Chacha? The minister was on his feet. Why are you raising?
Why the minister is going all over? We are talking about soap here.
That's exactly the point. There is Honourable Chacham, that is an irrelevant. It is actually not a point of order.
It's not
No,
relevant.
there is relevance to what the minister is saying. He is leading to his sober speech. Kindly allow him to continue. Take your seat, please. Thank you.
He's out of order, this one.
Honourable Chacham, you are out of order. Take your seat, please. You may proceed, Minister Windy.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So the state of our nation, we might have a new president, but what we also have is we still have an ANC that is the Zuma ANC in power. And Madam Speaker, perhaps what really highlighted for me this state that we found our country in was yesterday a business conference gets called in the CTICC where our Minister of Finance is going to address this CTICC group of business people, and it's live on television, and the first question that the South African Minister of Finance gets asked is, what level of Candy Crush are you on? Now this really shows you this Zuma ANC that is still in power with a new president. This is the environment we've got to work on, we've got to work within, and the leader of the opposition comes here and says that the ANC is a government in waiting. Really? A government in waiting? Well, quite frankly, if you look at those two states, the state of this province versus the state of this nation, the ANC in this province are going to wait for a very, very long time. So, Madam Speaker, perhaps you've heard some comment about my T-shirt. I will be wearing T-shirts and jeans for the 150-day period that we, as a region, need to be using 50 litres of water per person per day. I will be doing it alongside those Cape Townians that are doing it so that we can protect the jobs in our economy because we are saving water, so that we can make that difference and not be a city or a region that does run out of water. I will be doing it, and I'll call on every single one of the people in this House to do it as well. But I want to use this opportunity to thank, as the Premier did, a number of speakers.
Members, there's too much noise. The minister's on his feet. You're drowning him out with your interjections. Can we settle down? Honourable Chacham, you seemingly have a problem. Are you hungry? Do you need to leave the House? Shall I send you out, or are you going to cooperate? Please. You beyond interjection, you're just having a running commentary. Please cooperate. Minister Windy, you may proceed.
Thank you. Speaker, I want to thank the Cape Townians that are saving water. I want to thank the disaster management team in this province who for years have been working on minimizing the risk in our system. If you have a look at it last year, this time, how many of our municipalities were in severe risk status, and you have a look at where they are now, it's because of that disaster management team that have really moved it out of that risk space. If you take where we were just a month ago to where we are now, with day zero moving right the way into our rainy season and winter. I want to thank all of those municipalities and those teams out there that have been making this difference. Within our government, making sure that we are water resistant in our hospitals and our schools, that we can keep the water flowing should we reach this disaster stage. I want to thank agriculture. Agriculture specifically already last year started not irrigating 40% of their farms. The only industry that had to use a water allocation to go to a bank to borrow money to plant that specific crop is now voluntarily taken away that 40%, and then it moved to 60%. The only industry in this region, and I really want to thank them for it. Members of this House have thanked agriculture for the Palmit River system, putting water into our system, giving us another month. I too echo those sentiments. Groenland. The tourism sector, who really have gone for the last year and a half above and beyond to reduce their water volumes used in the system, that we can very proudly tell the world that come and visit us and be mindful despite being in a very severe drought. So I just want to use this opportunity to say to every single person involved in making sure that we see our way through this worst drought in 400 years. Thank you very much. We appreciate every single one of you. Speaker, I want to say to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, who says he's a leader in waiting, the ANC is waiting to govern. This is his day. This is the day that the opposition comes and says, well, this is what the alternative is going to be. He's not even here. But I want to say to him around the comments, the disgusting comments that he made around the Knysna disaster. You know, it wasn't just this cabinet that went to Knysna. It was members of the national cabinet, from Kokta, from disaster. Their president came to Knysna. The South Africans across this country stood together to support Knysna. Public came to Knysna. Where was he, this leader in waiting? I didn't see him in Knysna, not once. I didn't see them in Knysna, not once. This, we are waiting to govern. They're going to wait a very, very long time. But he also spoke about Imizamo Yetu, a really serious disaster there as well. 3,500 homes destroyed, 15,000 people displaced. So what happened there? You saw the photographs of this cabinet who visited, the City Mako members. What about the national ministers who visited? They also visited Imizamo Yetu. Where was he, this leader in waiting? I didn't see him there. So he makes these statements, but he's not even present. Not even present on his day when he's supposed to be showing the alternative. He's run away. But then I must also, in this space, thank the residents that stood up. Tula Tula, Gift of the Givers, Red Cross, the International School, and the Ambleside Primary School. Pick and Pay. Remember, the cycle tour was cancelled. Pick and Pay took every single piece of food and drink, the cool drinks and things that they were going to be using to sponsor for that day. They took every single thing through to Imizamo Yetu. The cycle tour took all of the food that was all the way through. There were people that stood up, the tents, the 10 million rand that the city put into Imizamo Yetu. Where were you? Where were you when that happened? So don't come here and make these kind of nonsense statements. You can only make it if you've got some integrity to stand up and make it. So, Speaker, let me move to the jobs. There's been a lot said about jobs, and yesterday in this House, every time the Premier mentioned jobs, this side of the House kept on making lots of comments. Where are these jobs? Where these jobs come from? Well, let me talk about these jobs. Now, these jobs, the 322,000 jobs in Project Khulisa, since we've been in government in the 9 years. Remember the president 9 years ago, Zuma stood up and said, we are going to create 1 million jobs in agriculture. I'm going to get to that just now. But the 322,000 jobs in this province came from Project Khulisa in this province. You've heard Member Schaefer mentioned the 92,000 jobs in the last quarter in this province. We are 14% of South Africa's GDP. Gauteng, ANC-run Gauteng, is 35% of South Africa's GDP. 14% in the last quarter created 92,000 jobs. How many jobs were created in Gauteng in the last quarter? Not naught. They lost 77,000 jobs. Year on year. Remember Gauteng, ANC run 35% of South Africa's economy. We are less than half of that. In
Minister
Gauteng.
Wendy, sorry, there's a member on the floor. Kindly take your seat, Honourable Chacha.
Speaker, the member is misrepresenting.
Honourable Chacha.
We cannot allow him to continue like this.
Honourable
because
Churcham, I cannot. That is
even
not.
that
That
is
is
not
not.
what it said. Wait,
Sorry, that is not a point of order. It's a point of debate, and I am not going to allow you to continue
must not
with
come
that
and
line
lie
of
here.
thinking. Kindly take your seat, please.
not lie
Thank
here,
you.
please.
You may proceed, Minister Windy.
Thank you very much, Speaker. In Gauteng, 35% of the GDP of South Africa, we are 14. In the Western Cape, year on year, 106,000 jobs. How many jobs in Gauteng year on year? They lost 121,000 jobs, lost to the system. Let's have a look at where these jobs are. 66,000 of the 92,000 in this province were in the rural areas of this province. In the rural areas of this province. 66,000 of those jobs.
Order,
this
please.
all comes from statistics.
Honourable Churcham, I am at the point of asking you, will you comply? We're not better together if you continue in that way. Please, members, there's a speaker on the floor. Let's not drown out the speaker. You may proceed, Minister Windy. Honourable Churcham, you are on a cautionary as of now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The breakdown in these jobs: formal, 53,000, informal, 14,000, agriculture, 34,000, private households, 9,000. The 9,000 we lost in private households. Every single one of those other jobs we gained. These aren't temporary jobs. These are jobs in the economy. And if they talk about, I think they should go and read the Stats SA quarterly report, October to December 2017. At the same time, in this province, our unemployment rate dropped to 19.5%. Gauteng's is at 29.1% and the overall in South Africa at 26.2%. So quite frankly...
Order, please, members. Well, the minister's directed you to the report, Member Davids. I don't think he will have the time to present it here now. Sorry, you may
Speaker,
proceed.
9 years ago, we were trading predominantly with Europe, our trade out of this province. And the world went into a recession. Go and have a look at the stats of trade and the change of trade from this province in diversification. You heard the Premier yesterday talking about some of our growth into China. But last year, a year ago, we exported to Europe 36.27 billion rand out of this region. That was to Europe. They were our predominant partners 9 years ago. Today, we export 45.13 billion to Africa alone. That's the changes that come about because of this government. I know that my time is, so I could speak for quite a lot longer on that point, but let me talk about land.
Order, please.
Let me talk about land, Speaker. And the ANC now talking about expropriation without compensation. Let's have a look at where the ANC has failed since they've come into power nationally in this country. Failed whether it's expropriation without compensation, and failed even with compensation. The Department of Land Reform at the moment has, and this is according to the research from the In Transformation Initiative, NPO, 4,323 farms that they have expropriated. Do you know that they have not given 1 square centimetre of those farms to new ownership, to land redistribution, to new farmers? None of it. Zero. Nothing. I've been talking about that in this province since I took on the agricultural portfolio. Their policy is not to transform or transfer land. That is their policy.
Honourable Davids.
Their policy
Stop howling,
is
please.
not about land transformation. Let's go to just the department whose job it is. When I got this job 4 years ago and took over the portfolio of agriculture and went to my first MINMEC, the Minister Nkwinti, whose job it is to transform and hand over this land, he says, we are not spending this money on land transformation, we're going to build agri-parks. And I want this spent in the next year, 2 billion rand. 4 years later, nothing. Not happening. The transformation, no matter what the rhetoric, that political party has failed absolutely in changing the position with land ownership in this province. Then let me come to the point. Let me come to the point about where is your annual report and what about the audit?
Minister Bredal. Thank you.
I am really, really sad that I have not been able to table. I'm really sad that I've not been able to table the audit of the Department of Agriculture here in this House, because I am challenging the Auditor General on this point. Because the Auditor General, because the Auditor General says to me, says to me, if you just change this in your books, if you just change this in your books, we will give you a clean audit. I'm not prepared to do that.
Order, please. You're howling. You're out of order.
I'm not prepared to do that. This province is not the Free State.
That is, sorry, take your seat, please, Minister. That is unnecessary and uncalled for. I told you earlier, I am the presiding officer, not you. You're the chief whip, or what is it, the deputy chief whip. Please manage yourself accordingly. Thank you. You may proceed, Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. This province is not the Free State. And that is why we are being looked at differently. Because in the agricultural department in the Free State, they funded a dairy. They funded a dairy. 220 million rand went to the Guptas and the Zumas. A transfer payment. They funded weddings in other provinces. And I will not be combed with the same brush. We need to make sure that we are able to build partnerships in this province. We talk about better together. We take our money and we maximize it. And just one example is how we work with Hortgrow and we partner with them. We put some research money between them and ourselves, 6 million from our side, 80 million from their side, and we make massive differences in creating opportunities for land reform, jobs, new entries into the market, and looking at new crops that are water-wise. So quite frankly, Speaker, the difference between the ANC-run provinces, I still today have not heard one item from any ANC member to say this is how we do it in our ANC-run provinces, because they can't. The state of this province versus the state of our nation are like chalk and cheese. This province under this DA government shows you how to really run a state. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Minister Windy. Honourable Danke. Please. You said that is the most useless rubbish. Will you kindly withdraw that statement, please? No, I heard what you said.
No, Speaker. Earlier on, the Premier was saying rubbish as well.
No, but the manner in which...
Speaker,
no. All right, well then, let me revert to Hansard. Honourable Yankee knows exactly what he said. I will revert to Hansard and come back to the House with a ruling at the cost of the clock. Thank you. That then concludes the debate on the Premier's State of the Province address. The Honourable Premier will reply to the debate on Monday, the 26th of February 2018 at 2:15. That concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned.